The Single Family Design Board meeting for August 26, 2024 has begun. We will start with a roll call.
Thank you. I'll proceed with roll call. Chair Lewis.
Yes.
Board Member Graffiti.
Yes.
Board Member Moslahi.
Yes.
Board Member Sherry.
Yes.
We have quorum. Thank you.
Okay, we will start with public comment. This is for any general public comment not related to one of the agendized items.
Thank you, Chair Lewis. I'll start with in-person public comment. At this time, I do not have any slips for general public comment. However, if anyone wishes to make a comment, they may fill one out and bring it to me. I see no one in the audience moving to do so, so I will turn my attention to virtual public comment. And at this time, I do not see any hands raised for virtual public comment. We did, however, receive a written correspondence from a Mr. Ian Nicholson for general public comment. And at that, I will turn it back over to you, Chair Lewis.
Thank you. And staff, for that general public comment, it is related to a specific project number. If and when that project comes to the board, will that get applied or could it be?
Yes, it can be reapplied for. Staff sometimes receives emails out of the hearing dates before a project is scheduled, and if we can, we try to hold on to them and resubmit, submit them on behalf of the applicants or behalf of the public when we can. With these specific comments, I'm not sure who the case planner is. It might even be me, but at this time, I can't guarantee it.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll see what we can do about it.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Next, we will approve the minutes from August 7th and August 12th. Those are the full board, so we'll start with August 7th. Pen has stuff. Oh, I have another one. Thanks. Yeah. Looks good. That looks good. Looks good. That looks good to me.
I had one comment on item 1. Is it mediation or mitigation of trees? Item 1, I think it was motion item number 1. Two.
And
Removal
mitigation, thank
and
you.
Mediation of trees? Is that a word?
What's a word? But it should be mitigation, I believe. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks for catching.
That's all.
Okay. I'll move to approve the minutes for August 7th as noted.
Second.
Chair Lewis.
Yes.
Board Member Graffiti.
Abstain.
Board Member Moslahi.
Yes.
Board Member Sherry.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, we will review August 12th. looks good. For item 2, if you could add to the end of it to balance the front elevation.
I think for number 4 as well, it's comments, not comments. It's a typo.
Recommends?
Recommends, okay.
Recommends okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it's comments, okay.
The rest looks good? Okay. Okay, I'll move to approve the minutes from August 12th.
Second?
Chair Lewis,
Yes.
Board Member Graffiti,
Abstain.
Board Member Moslahi,
Yes.
Board Member Sherry.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, next is approval of the minutes from the consent meeting on August 12th. This was Board Member Sherry present.
Oh, it was my item.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
I didn't
Looks good.
so I just made compatibility findings.
Okay, so I'll move to approve the consent meeting minutes from August 12th.
Second.
Chair Lewis.
Yes.
Board Member Graffiti,
Yes.
Board Member Moslahi.
Yes.
Board Member Sherry.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, next we'll do ratification of action taken on the consent calendar for August 19th and August 26th.
Great.
And staff, you'll be able to read through?
Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah, for ratifications, we don't read through all the comments. We're just ratifying the actions here. I do have the draft of the August 19th, but I'll just read off the items here. So for August 19th, 1295 Kenwood Road received project design approval and final approval. 1705 Franceschi Road, project design approval and final approval were granted. 632 North La Cumbre Road, both PDA and FA were approved. And 2324 Sonora Drive, project design approval and final approval granted. And for today, hot off the presses, 10 Rincon Vista was granted project design approval and final approval with conditions. 252 Santa Ynez Court, project design approval and final approval with conditions. 1724 La Coronilla Drive, continued indefinitely with comments. 3333 Braemar Drive, project design approval and final approval granted.
That looks good for August 19th. Did you have any comments from today's?
No.
Okay, I'll move to ratify the action taken at the consent calendar on August 19th and August 26th.
Second.
Chair Lewis,
Yes.
Board Member Graffiti,
Yes.
Board Member Moslahi,
Yes.
Board Member Sherry.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, are there any announcements or future agenda items?
Yes. So this is an announcement from Ted Hamilton Roll. He wanted me to share this, that a couple of weeks ago, the SFDB secretary sent out an email with important information and dates regarding the fall recruitment for advisory groups. So please let us know if you did not receive that email. To summarize, applications for the fall advisory group's recruitment are expected to open tomorrow on August 27th. The deadline to apply online is September 25th at 5 p.m., and city council interviews will be held in the second half of October. So just to repeat, the deadline, it opens tomorrow, and the deadline is on September 25th at 5 p.m. And as a reminder, if your term is up at the end of this year and you want to continue serving for another term on this board, you need to reapply and interview at council again. Currently, board member Sherry is the only member with their term up at the end of this year, and we hope you reapply. We also have one unfilled seat, and obviously it's a very high priority for us to fill, so please help us spread the word, and thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that means potentially we'd have 2 open spots at the end of this year that we would need to fill. Okay.
Yes.
For the public, we highly encourage you to apply.
It's fun. And then my other announcement was that we do have the pre-ADU discussion that was continued at the last full board hearing, tentatively scheduled for September 9th. And also the SFDB amendments. We have some notes on that, and that is tentatively scheduled for October 7th. Hopefully those happen on those dates, but we'll wait and see. I just wanted to put it on everybody's radar.
Okay. And previously, the plan was to introduce the ADU concepts prior to there being any at that meeting. Is that still the case?
Yes, I believe the point of the pre-ADU discussion was for it to be purely a discussion item to kind of understand the board's purview and the board's role in approving the ADUs. I think at the previous hearing, we tried to get through them all, but there was a lot of
There
time
was a lot.
spent on trying to just understand what the board was looking at. So to mediate that, we decided to just have a pre-ADU discussion hearing itself.
Okay, great. If any of the board members think that they might be absent for one of those, it'd be great if you can let Ted know. I think it's important for everyone to be present.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, any other announcements from the board? All right, we'll move to our first item, which is here for review after final approval, 36 Rincon Vista Road. Proposal to demolish the existing 2,225 square foot, 3-story single-unit residence and construct a new 3,294 square foot, 3-story single-unit residence with an attached 442 square foot 2-car garage and a 40 square foot trash enclosure attached to the garage. The project includes a new pool, driveway, site retaining walls, and hardscape and landscape improvements. The proposed total of 3,776 square feet on an 18,295 square foot lot is 86% of the maximum guideline floor to lot area ratio. Staff hearing officer approval of a front setback modification, interior setback modification, and open yard modification was granted on January 12, 2022. Review after final approval is requested to revisions to the previously approved roof, windows, and rear yard site work. The project requires substantial conformance to the plans that received final approval on December 5th. Before you begin, we're going to try and make sure this monitor will turn on. And sometimes it's the cord on the back. Let's see.
Oh, attached.
Oh, there it is.
The screen is working, but it's not
Displaying
connected.
correctly.
Yeah.
Is it just on this end, maybe?
That one's work. Oh, no. That made it worse.
Oh, no.
That's okay.
Let's see here. Yeah.
I think like previous line was from.
Oh,
Oh,
there it is.
there we go.
Okay.
Okay.
Don't touch me.
And I
Okay,
need to
so
read
before
the-
we begin, are there any staff comments for this one?
Yes, there are staff comments for this one. This project was submitted for review after final. Staff could not administratively approve the project because specifically the roof that was being proposed was metal, and in previous hearings, that specific item was denied by a straw vote by the board. So staff couldn't approve it administratively. And we also couldn't approve the perceived change in massing for the retaining wall in the rear. The applicant team clarified that it's going to be pretty well shielded with plants and landscaping, but we thought we would leave it up to the full board to determine that. And so it's here for you today. Thank you.
Okay.
I need to read the statement.
Yes.
Yeah.
There we go.
For the record, the State Fair Politics Practices Act, Regulation 18702.4 B5 states that an official may appear before a design or architectural review committee of which he or she is a member to explain, present architectural or engineering drawings which the official has prepared for a client. I, Don Sherry, as a sole practitioner and using this exemption, understand certain limits regarding advocating on behalf of my client.
Thank you. If you all don't mind stating your names for the record and walking us through the changes, it'd be helpful to flip back through the previous approved plans and the new ones and any changes that occurred.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
I'm Lauren Ballantyne. I'm project architect for Sherry and Associates Architects. And here we have,
Courtney Miller, CJMLA Landscape Architect.
and the property owner is also here with us today. Yeah, you can.
My name is David Sims.
Okay, so to summarize the changes, Sebastian let you know already, we have some material changes to the roof. We also have some minor changes to the materiality of the site retaining walls and the exterior walls on the east and west elevations. We have some minor interior alterations that have changed the windows on the east elevation, and then some site grading and retaining walls landscape. And that's a quick summary, but we'll go through them one by one. I'm showing the front elevation, and on this, the only difference is the roof material. Previously, we were approved for 2 material types. We had a composite shingle roof on the main upper level, and then the rest, which would be the garage level and all of the bay windows, had a standing seam metal roof. And we are proposing that for continuity and fire protection, as well as preference, that we have a single roof type, and we'd like the standing seam metal. Same specification as previously approved, just in more locations. And you can see the difference here. And then the site or the material changes to the walls. We have this band of sandstone that wraps around the entire building, or did before previously. And we are proposing just eliminating it on the exterior walls of the east and west elevations, as well as on some of the planter walls on the south elevation. And we will be replacing it with stucco that is now painted. Oh, here we go. This, a darker color that blends in with the sandstone, a nice, I don't know, grayish brown. So sublime. There it is. One other change on this is the awnings were previously approved as louvered awnings, and we are now proposing a more conventionally framed awning, and so these will have a solid roof that will also be the standing seam metal. There's no change to the location or supports. And then the grading changes are a little bit more significant in the sense that while the structure was under construction, the soils conditions were observed to be less favorable than we originally anticipated. The soils engineer no longer was in support of a 3-to-1 slope or anything greater than 3-to-1 slope for the fill. So we had kind of a substantial fill on the south here. And that was to reduce the apparent height of the retaining walls to allow site access from above. You can kind of see the stairs coming down here, and provide a little bit of usable landscape for the owners. And when we had to remove a good portion of that fill in order to meet the slope requirements, the grade beam that was already poured for these walls would have then been exposed. And so in order to make sure that the grade beam was underground, we needed fill in this area, and were then required to have retaining walls at some place on the site. And I can actually show you the site plan just so we can go through some of those options. So, we have the entire site here, and we reviewed a lot of different options for where these retaining walls would best be placed, as they were definitely needed. And if we placed them lower on the site, we had a few problems. One would be we would require more fill on the hillside. Additionally, the length of the walls overall would be longer, and we would require more caissons. This was really expensive. Also, the visibility from the street and the city would be negatively impacted because the walls would be more prominent, whereas if we tucked them up higher on the hillside, they would be a little bit taller. However, we could more effectively screen them with landscaping on the hill. We would reduce the amount of fill on the hillside, and we were able to still provide some usable space for the owner. The material of the wall that we're proposing is a split face CMU block in this Canyon Bluff color. It will, from afar, look really similar to the sandstone material that we already have proposed, and once properly landscaped, will just kind of disappear. And we have some current photos of the site under construction, just to kind of give you a visual of the visibility of these walls. The retaining walls would be, right around this area. And we have hedges that are currently here, and, when they fill in, provide really good screening for the walls. This is the viewpoint from the neighbor to the east. This is on Las Alturas Road, looking up. Hardly visible at all. And this is coming up from the west, or going down Las Alturas from the west side, and you can't even see the residents from the hill. We also took a few photos from Ortega Park, because this was, a clearing that we could actually see the hillside to see. It's way up there and not super noticeable. Here's a zoomed in view, and just to give you an idea of what face is out. And then here we have a couple of schematic renderings that just show the overall massing of this wall. The wall height goes from about 4 feet above finished grade on this side to 10 feet at its highest point. And previously, the highest point of the wall was 8 feet, and that's this corner. And then it went down to about 6 feet max at this corner. So we're looking for another basically 4 feet of visible wall. And these are not depicting the exact trees, but do kind of show the correct placement and overall sizes of some of the landscaping that's proposed, just so you can see once the landscaping is installed, how much screening it provides and minimizes the appearance of that retaining wall. And I'd like to have Courtney review the landscape plans with you in more depth, just so she can talk about the screening. And let's see, this might be able to faster. Here we go.
Okay, so as Lauren mentioned, I think the main change is in the rear here along the slope. So I'll just go to the planting plans that kind of show that area. Yeah, so the walls range in height. They get highest here on this corner. The plant material that we're proposing ranges in height from 4 up to 6 feet on the ground. And then we also have really dense evergreen vines planted along the whole wall on all sides. This is the one portion of the wall here, and then it steps back, and there's another portion here. So, this shrub is a rhamnus, which is the coffee berry. This symbol is ecum, which is Pride of Madeira. I have a sketch here I can show that kind of gives you a sense of the massing for the plant material there. I also wanted to mention, we have planters up top here on the east side. So we have more vines planted in the upper planter on that side that can kind of climb down the wall too. In addition to that, we have our oak trees, which were, the most prominent tree in those renders that you just saw. Here's one, and this is another. There's a third one just on the following sheet, which I can point out. And those were, really specifically placed to accommodate screening. We also have a number of fruit trees. So those are this size symbol, and there's 2 here, and then I think 5 here, all different species. Our clients want to grow a lot of their own food. So, figs, avocados, citrus, et cetera. And so, most of those can grow, 10 to 12 feet or so, depending on the variety. And so we feel like, this is more than enough to address the height of the wall. And I'll kind of show you the lower slope. The other thing that we've got is just as you move down the slope, various height massing of shrubs. The bigger symbols are the larger material, and then the hatches are ground covers, and then we have agaves, clumped around. And that's probably it for the plans. And then maybe the video can, I don't know if they can still do that, but I did a little sketch so you guys.
Can the camera pick up the drawing that's here on the table?
City TV, can you please focus on the drawing on the table?
On the iPad?
On the iPad, is that?
Oh, do I have to change over here?
Oh, no, she's changing it. There we go. I need to slide that way.
Okay, I think, yeah, there. I don't know why it's not coming up.
There we go.
Okay.
So the dark green shrub would be the coffee berry, and the light green is the ecum, and you can kind of see the massing there. And this is, of course, drawn at mature size. So there's just a bit of wall peeking out the top, which I didn't even draw in the vines, how they'll be eventually, but that's the ficus minima vine, which they're pretty aggressive and they cover really fast. And so, it'll be a green wall in time. And then there's other planters that kind of step up in and around the pool area as well. So I kind of started to sketch that too, just to give you guys a sense of things. Up top, is there anything else on the architecture?
Yeah, actually,
Okay.
one other thing.
Great.
Thank you. I realized that I just zipped right through and missed the one window change. So let me go back to, actually, I think it's page 8. Okay, so here we have, we had 3 windows along this wall, and we've removed 2. The size of the window is the same, and it's placed a little bit more offset, and this just provides more privacy in the remodeled restroom area. That was the last thing.
I just wanted to say that we are, of course, upset that we actually have to change our plan because this isn't what we had hoped for. But we recognize that it's required for safety reasons. The safety of the neighbors is critical. So, we worked as hard as we could with our experts to come up with a solution that was cost-effective and, tried to maintain the design as well as we could. So I really like the fact that they were able to hide the whole thing. We never, of course, wanted to build another retaining wall, but it's I think, a great workable solution, and I hope you think so too.
Thank you.
All right, for the record, you have a 5 minutes or so in case you want to say anything else later. We'll move to public comment.
Thank you. Chair Lewis, I'll proceed with public comment. At this time, I do not have any slips for this project. However, if anyone wishes to make a comment on this project, they may fill one out and bring it to me. I see no one in the audience moving to do so, so we will turn our attention to virtual comment. And at this time, I see no hands raised for virtual comment on this project, and we did not receive any written correspondence on this project either. So at that, I will turn it back over to you, Chair Lewis.
Okay, perfect. We'll start with questions. Any questions?
Yeah, I have one thing was in the previous meeting, it was mentioned that the revisions were to the roof, windows, and rear yard site work. Did we see the rear yard
I
site
think
work?
that's the site wall.
Okay, so that's the change. Okay. And can I ask what was the reason that you guys changed those retaining walls to the dark gray stucco from the stones?
Value engineering,
Oh,
I mean,
I see.
cost savings. We didn't really think that the cost to benefit ratio penciled out. It's a lot of wall, and so the price goes up really quickly. So we wanted to keep it in the areas that had the most impact. And, the side, there's hardly any visibility, and the rear, we actually thought it was kind of nice to break up all of that sandstone so that it has actually less of a single wall impact from a distance.
Yeah, I think like with covering of all the landscape screening, it's all, but I was curious about the reason. And one question to Courtney was the vines on that lower planter, the one that had the railing, does those climb down as well? Or like it climbs up?
They'll climb up from the ground and then down from the upper planter.
Oh, so like it will be like a green wall.
Full coverage, yeah.
And the window change that you showed at the end, can you show us on the site plan or anywhere that shows like which neighbor it affects?
Oh,
You
sure.
know, like where is it looking from?
Actually, how do I exit full screen here? Oh, here, we figured it out. So I can show you, let me show you the floor plans from both so you can see. This was the previous layout. And, oh, here we go, here's Zoom. And so we had the closet and then the bath on this side, and we wanted to flip them. So now the new layout has the bath on this side and the closet here. So we reduced the windows on this side for the shower wall, and the sink so we could have mirrors. And the neighbor to this side, I mean, it's actually improving their privacy by removing the windows.
Okay, thank you. That was my questions.
Any questions?
Just can you cover, so it sounds like the previously approved roofing material was a mix of metal roof and, was it shingle, or can you remind me what it was?
Yeah, it was shingle.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
No questions. I'll start comments. I think that the landscaping improvements on the site wall answered any concerns that we might have of the size. I think the side elevation improves with reducing the amount of stone, so I think that that's nice. And I think it's effective on the backside, changing the materials. And again, showing all the landscaping helps to show how you're not seeing quite a large mass even as the walls step up. I know in the past there have been, other board members up here and they had comments about the amount of standing seam metal, but I actually think it fits the architectural style of the house to do that across the entire house, and provides a nice cohesive aesthetic, so I'm in support of that as well. And yeah, no issues with the window for me. Any other comments?
Yeah, I agree, and I appreciate that the walls that you're moving away from the stone are a very natural color that blend in well, and I agree, there's so much vegetation. It's going to be back there between the trees and the shrubs and vines and everything. I think it'll be minimally visible, so I'm in full support.
Yeah, I agree with the comments, and I think like the picture that you guys had from the park far away from like showing that, I think with the amount of landscape proposed and the house, I think whatever it was before, it will be much better and the neighborhood will appreciate what you guys are doing.
Okay, does anyone want to make a motion?
Sure. It sounds like the motion today is to approve or to find that the plans substantially conform to the plans from final approval. Is that what it is? Or is there a more verbatim? I don't think I've made this motion before.
Yeah, no, that's practically it. So
Okay.
verbatim would be the project demonstrates substantial conformance to plans that receive final approval on December 5th, 2020.
So I make a motion to approve the project as the plans substantially conform to the plans that received final approval on December 5th, 2022.
Second.
Chair Lewis,
Yes.
Board Member Graffiti,
Yes.
Board Member Moselhe,
Yes.
motion passes.
Great, thank you.
Great,
Thank
thanks
you.
all. And just to the applicant that that does start the appeal period, so we've got to wait 10 days, but I believe you already have your submittal process underway. So yeah, once those 10 days end, we'll be able to mark the case approved.
Staff,
Thanks
is there
all.
any need for us to elaborate on the motion to include why we did it, or do you don't anticipate any appeals?
If you have any reservations, I would say to include comments if you would
I think it might be beneficial just in case. So I'd like to suggest an amendment to the motion to include the comments that the board finds the metal standing seam roof to aesthetically match the architectural language of the house. The board approves the rear wall, given the substantial amount of screening landscape proposed, and material of the wall that blends in with the surrounding site. Does the maker of the motion
Yep,
approve?
I will accept those
Okay.
amendments.
Do we want to add the window reduction?
I don't think that's going to be an issue.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we're good.
okay. Do we need a roll call again? Mhm.
Chair Lewis?
Yes.
Board Member Graffiti,
Yes.
Board Member Moselhe?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Great, thanks all.
Okay. We'll move to our next item, which is a continued item here for concept review.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
I didn't even look
believe-
at the time.
Yeah,
Okay, we have to
apologies
wait
for that.
5 minutes. The earliest we can begin is at 3:45. So, thank you. we will reconvene. Did I already read this one? No. Okay. So we are on item 2, continued item here for concept review, 1337 Cliff Drive. Proposal to construct additions to an existing 1,706 square foot, single-story, single-unit residence consisting of a 136 square foot first floor addition and a 797 square foot new second story. Project includes a 336 square foot second story deck, a 93 square foot roof deck, converting an as-built 322 square foot detached storage space to a deck, and reducing existing walls, gates, and hedges in the front yard to be 3 feet and 6 inches. A 485 square foot attached 2-car garage and raised deck in the backyard will remain. The parcel is in the coastal zone, not appealable jurisdiction. The proposed total of 3,124 square feet of development on a 7,939 square foot lot is 99% of the maximum required Florida lot area ratio. No final appealable decision will take place at this hearing. Neighborhood preservation findings will be required at PDA. Project was last heard on November 21st, 2022. So welcome. Are there any staff comments for this item?
Yes, the case planner is absent today for this project. This is Holly Garson's project. But she did want to request the board formally waive the FAR requirements for projects that exceed 85% of the maximum required FAR. I can provide the supplemental handout so we can review what those requirements are. And we're also requesting that the board consider continuing this project to the consent level for both project design approval and final approval, if that seems okay with you. And that's about it.
Okay.
Wait, just to clarify, you're saying that the planner recommends that we waive the requirements for the supplemental information because the project's over 85%?
Yes, I believe
Or
so.
specify which ones we require.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
correct. Yeah, so when a project is proposed over 85%, FAR supplemental requirements for the board's review are, I think, something like showing neighborhood studies and
No, I
things
know
like
what they
that.
are. I'm just,
Oh, okay.
I misinterpreted your statement.
Yeah.
I thought you
Oh,
said
okay.
that the
He did
staff.
say that we require, but it's more that we need to specify.
Yeah, whether or not, yes, thank
Yes.
you. Thank you for the
Okay.
clarification. Yeah.
Right, it was still up to the board, so, okay. All right, if you don't mind, I see your microphones are on. If you can state your names for the record and then walk us through the project and make sure to run us through the old minutes, which are on the 3rd tab of your screen there, and any changes between the old plans that are the 2nd tab and what's proposed now. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name's Joe Androlitis with Androlitis Mixon Architects.
Janet Shoulder. And Brian Shoulder, homeowner.
I'll give you a little history. The project that was presented to you almost 2 years ago was presented by another designer who didn't even bother to show up to the hearing. So that's why Brian has hired me to continue this project. It's a completely new design. I can go over the minutes. They're not really applicable. So if that's okay with you guys, I'll just go into the history here.
It may be helpful just to know the minutes, and you don't need to review the old plans then.
I'm happy to save my question. I do have a few questions related to the minutes, even though the plans are different. Some of them are related to FAR and items, deck sizes, things like that. So I don't know how we feel about that. We can approach it either way, though.
Yeah, I can get into that and explain it while I present the project. So in addition to the history, I inherited this project, previous design. We had gone through a first round of application completeness review, got a bunch of comments. They were pretty straightforward. So I took on the project, redesigned it, we addressed the comments, and of course I got a whole slew of new comments the next round. So it's been a very trying process for Brian and Janet. And one of the issues was the deck. I'll just go to the photos real quick just to give you a history here. This deck that you see is the
It's
hand
also a
tool.
touch screen if it helps.
I forget where the hand tool is. It's not up there. I'll just use the thing.
I'm glad you're doing that this time.
Yeah.
Well, I'm usually on a Mac, so you can see this deck right here. So Brian and Janet bought this house. The deck's been existing for 20 plus years. Surprise to us, that didn't come up in the first application review, but staff determined that this was a storage space. Apparently in the old existing plans, this deck was permitted, but it had cross bracing between the posts in the original design. And so I inspected it. It looks like probably in the field during construction, they elected to put plywood shear walls in lieu of the cross bracing, which made the deck enclosed from the south face. It's not covered in the sense that it has a waterproof cover. The deck above is a space deck, so water comes through the space. They typically store their Halloween decorations. Janet's a big Halloween decorator and has a big, huge skeleton she likes to put up on the top of the deck during Halloween. So we went back and forth with staff. I did not win. They said it's a storage area. I disagreed, but they've agreed to eliminate the wall, put the cross bracing back in per the original permit, and just put a guardrail height wall on the lower portion of it to make sure it's not counted as a storage area. So that is the deck history as a background. So I'll just start with the site plan here. This is the site of the project, and you'll notice this peculiar little flat spot here that's kind of odd. Well, the house was designed in 2015, right? To possibly put a second floor addition in that area. I'm still puzzled as to how that was going to work, given the structural drawings I reviewed. So, and giving the massing of how that was going to work, it didn't, for me, look as a aesthetically pleasing solution. So we've kind of abandoned that location for the addition for the second floor. The previous design had the addition entirely on the west side here, from the north end all the way to the south end. I thought that mass was a little too imposing on the neighbor next door. So what we've done is go to the roof plan. We've tried to center the massing over the existing house and then soften this mass on the west side by putting a deck here and then stepping this back from the street. This is the first floor roof, and then this is the proposed second floor roof. This is a little spiral stair to a small little roof deck to watch the fireworks on the 4th of July. Go back to the site plan as far as the FARs. This is the FAR table, and I apologize that this table did not get updated here, and I have a new one if you needed to see it. Given the back and forth with staff regarding that storage area, I updated the FAR on the title sheet, but I failed to update this spreadsheet as far as the ranking of the FAR with other units.
CCTV can pull up from here. These are the same or these are different? These are two different ones? Yes. Okay.
CCTV, if you could please focus on the drawing on the table.
So in the one on the plans, I think we're tied for first, and here we're second with a 0.4 FAR, and then on the other one, I think we were first, and here we're third on the area. So that gives you an accurate assessment of the FAR. There's a similar two-story addition, 2 houses down. At this location, I believe it's 1327 Cliff, and that addition looks like this. Whoops. You can see it right there. That's 2 houses to the east. And then the 2 houses that are at or above are on bigger lots, so I think it's, if you can, it's this one right here, right?
Let's see, where are we at? No, it's on the
1350. I can't read the text. Can I, oh, you have it over here. Let me just blow it up here.
What's the number? Oh,
1334 San
1334 San Rafael, so it's to the east.
1342, another, yeah.
So that's this house right here.
Yep.
So here's our house, and then this is the house that is the biggest house in the neighborhood there. Okay, so that gives you kind of some context of a couple other things that you'll notice in the things. We have a wall in the front that's 44 inches high, and a hedge in front of it, which is taller than the wall. Previously, we thought we could keep the hedge, which is allowed to be over 42 inches, but a wall can't be. So we were going to lower the wall, keep the hedge. And then we got hit with the Cliff Drive master plan that says that we have, what do you call it's not setback, but there's a little zone that we have to comply with, so I can't have the hedge now, and I got to lower the wall. So the hedge is going to have to go. There's nothing I can do about that. Here's a site section through the area. So here you can see the existing deck, the existing storage area that's been opened up underneath the deck. This is the height limit over the area based on the existing grade. Here's the railing of the deck on the south side. Here's the outline of the roof above. Roof pitch is 4.5, 12. Roof pitch, which are matching. This section looking the other way. Here's elevation of that deck area underneath the existing deck that we have to open up and put back the cross bracing. This shows the open space requirement. Here's the deck on the upper floor. Here's the deck on the roof. And then this is the deck at grade, and then this is the area below it. This is the existing layout. Garage, 2 bedrooms here, and a master bedroom here with a living area and a kind of enclosed kitchen area, and this set-in kind of alcove. So we're going to fill in this alcove, which really doesn't add to the mass of the structure, open up the kitchen, and then we're going to put in a stair leading up to the second floor here. This is going to be their forever home, so the setup is supposed to be a multi-generational home that can maybe offer some assistance as Brian and Janet get older. Hence the 2 master suite scenario. Second floor, come up, master suite facing south, bathroom looking toward the north, closet on the northwest side, and then a little guest room office on the east side with a nice outdoor deck enjoying the ocean view. Roof plan, this is a little sunroom that leads up to a little roof deck. Very small little area just for a couple seats just to kind of enjoy that view to the west. Proposed elevations. South elevation, you can see the mass facing south. This is in the foreground. This area is back in the background with the deck in the front. We got a little shade structure over the master bedroom on the first floor. This is that enclosed alcove that we're with bifolding doors. This is the west elevation showing the deck. Considerable less mass facing the west side from the previous design. North elevation, you notice in the existing photos, this house is pretty well sunken into the site from the street elevation. So the second floor isn't as imposing to the street as if it was at grade. So this shows the addition. This is the forward area where we have the bathroom and the closet. This is the sunroom leading up to the roof deck. I'm proposing glass rails just to make it look transparent up there, so it kind of goes away. East elevation is set back. This is the guest room side, sunroom, and then you see the glass rail for the roof deck above. You can kind of see a portion of the deck behind there. Here are the elevations compared to the existing structure. You can see how the massing has changed. Here's just some basic perspectives. I showed an ISO to give you kind of a bird's eye view of how that deck is arranged. And this is the enclosed alcove for the living area to make that a little bigger. North elevation on the first floor doesn't really change. Then here's the second floor massing. And these are our street views with kind of the massing kind of shown in there, superimposed over the existing photo to give you an idea of how it adds to the mass of the existing house. And then this one is looking from the south, kind of a bird's eye view of the mass of the building compared to what's there now. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Chair Lewis, Megan Arciniega has joined us. She's filling in for Holly Carson on this project, and I'd just like to request if we can open up back staff comments.
Yes, that would be great.
Yeah. I don't know if there's any background you wanted to share, but
Thank you, Chair. I'm Megan Arciniega. I'm filling in for Holly Garson. She's a project planner. So this project has gone through a few rounds of changes, and so I was just here to be available for questions. The applicant has responded to the last incomplete letter by changing their project scope. A lot of what was of question was the existing deck below the house on the bluff kind of side. Was enclosed, it was permitted previously, but enclosed below the railing, that enclosed wall, if you will, was of question, making it floor area, and that part wasn't permitted, and it would have triggered an FAR mod, which is a difficult endeavor to get. We would need unanimous support and go to Planning Commission. So they've opted to revert back to the permitted condition and open that back up so that it would just revert back. And then the only massing, if you will, additions would be to the house itself. So that was kind of the major change. And so now we're just back at design review only project, no mod in that regard.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll go to public comment.
Thank you, Chair Lewis. I'll proceed with a public comment. At this time, I do not have any slips for public comment. However, if anyone wishes to make a public comment, they may fill one out and bring it to me. I do not see anyone in the audience moving to do so. We will turn our attention to virtual comment. And at this time, I see no hands raised for virtual comment. For this project, we did receive several written correspondence, one from Michael and Roseanne Conway, Brian Shoulder, Richard and Susan Walter, Brian and Pam Dugan, and Susan Almack. And at that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Lewis.
All right, thank you. If we can quickly look at the old minutes, just to see, that's your third tab.
Third tab.
And scroll down, I don't know what number you were. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. We'll just pause. Okay. Has everyone looked in? Okay. Can you also then just quickly go to the old plans?
Here's where they had the stair. This is the second floor massing of the deck on the east side. It's the front elevation. It's the east elevation. South elevation. West elevation. And those are just existing elevations.
Okay. All right, we'll start with questions. Who would like to start us off? Mostly he?
I think.
Sherry? Board Member Sherry?
Yeah, I've got one question. How high is the glass guardrail on the roof deck?
42 inches high.
42 inches?
Yeah.
How, and one more question. How, what's the distance between the second floor west deck to the property line? And what is the distance from that deck to the neighbors? If you could show us a dimension, yeah, relative to the
It's
property line.
right on the setback, and the setback, I believe, is 6 feet.
6 feet. And then how close is it to the neighboring parcel? Like, could you?
If you go to the
on the
site
site plan?
plan, I never really got a survey for this, so I don't know, but I could zoom in on the aerial here. Both houses are likely right on the setback, but the deck is forward of the mass of the next door
Okay.
neighbor.
Thanks.
Any questions?
I do. I'm trying to gather them together. So thank you for covering the deck one, because that was one of mine. Did you consider the minutes from the last meeting at all in developing the new plans?
I did,
Okay.
yeah.
Some of the comments were related to FAR and bringing that down, and I noticed it went up a little bit. Can you talk me through
well-
why that happened?
The mass of the second floor went down, and I added the area down below, which
Okay.
brought it back to where it was before. So my feeling was that was an alcove, really didn't add to the mass of the building, and so I did reduce the second floor, but it got eaten up by having that little portion of the first floor filled in. So that was about 136 square feet.
Okay. 136 square feet, okay. I don't know if this is just a visual challenge. I'm going back and forth from the old plans to the new plans. It looks like, from my perspective, from Cliff looking at the house, I think that's the north elevation, the second story element is pushed out closer towards the setback. Can you confirm that? Just comparing from the old plans?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah. It had, the original design had this funky little roof line along the bottom. And so I thought it was a more attractive solution to just have a slightly narrower area that had a full story, two-story mass.
Did you study bringing that mass, as you added more mass in centrally on the second story, did you study bringing in that east elevation more towards the center of the house on the second story versus pushing out to the property line?
I did. There was some structural complications to make that happen. That would have probably add a lot of money to the project. So there's a bearing line on that east side that saves them a lot of money if we don't go past it. And
Okay.
we don't have to touch that wing of the house. So,
Another question is, I know there were some concerns from the next door neighbor around solar, which is, that portion was out of our purview, but also privacy. Have you connected at all with the neighbor on the new plans?
She's presently moving, and she put her solar system in, and it didn't affect anything. Her solar system was placed, but ultimately the house is in pending in escrow.
Okay, thank you.
And actually, since I pulled the mass back on the south side, it opens up the sun in the morning more into her property.
Okay, thank you. I might have some more, but I'm going to let some other board members jump in. Thanks.
I have a question regarding you mentioned that the second story now is more centered comparing to the old plans.
Uh-huh.
On the west side, Was that before on the setback line?
For the original design,
Yeah.
I mean, I'll click on it. I think that was slightly back. You can see on this elevation, it was back like 3 or 4 feet. So you
Okay.
can see it created this little roof line here.
Yeah. So with the roof now, with the, new updated massing, with the roof overhang, we are closer to the western neighbor, are we?
We're right on this, yeah, closer than the original design, yes. Yeah, on that side, yes.
And just the aesthetic question, was it a reason that on the roof we have like jogs in the corners? Like a second story roof on the corners?
The jogs on the corners are to deal with the sun control.
Okay.
So I didn't feel the need to have an extensive overhang for the whole roof, but at those south-facing windows, I extended those eaves to create more shade since it's all south-facing.
Okay. And just a general massing question. Have you guys studied any other option with having this sun deck rather than gabled roof, like flat roof on the second story with that like a boxy massing on top of the roof? Or like it started only with a sloped gable roof and having like a sun deck?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't consider a flat roof on the second floor because that would change the whole dynamic of the design of the building. And
we can talk
yeah.
about that on the
yeah, I
comments
mean,
later.
it totally
Yeah.
changes the style. I was just trying to
Okay.
keep it simple and keep the existing style intact with matching the same roof material, the same roof slope. And the deck is just, a nice open space. I know it looks out towards the neighbor on the west, but there are some plants along that side that shield that view that exists now.
Okay, I think I'm done with the questions. Maybe we can talk on that about in the comments part.
Yeah, I'll let you go.
I might be missing for this, but I think the previous board asked for street silhouette elevations. I saw a few photos of neighbors. Do you have silhouette?
On page 12.
It is, okay. Oh, okay. I think in my mind I'm expecting something different,
Yeah.
but okay.
I just did a photo and did the
Okay.
rendering on top of it.
Are there other examples in the neighborhood where the glass from the deck is facing the front street?
Not in this block, no.
Okay.
If I go to Shoreline Drive, probably.
Okay. And then I know you're here for concepts, so you may not have already looked at materials, but are there concepts in place? Is it matching existing? Are you proposing something new?
It's a stucco house. We're just going to keep it a stucco house. It's got asphalt shingle roof, remain the same. Window style will remain the same. I believe we have like a bluish gray with white windows. So.
And then what about at the deck that's no longer storage when those change over? It'll be a similar wood stain, or what's proposed there?
I haven't thought about that, but we can look at colors, probably more of an earthy tone to make that kind of blend in with the hillside.
I know that as a part of this is an FAR thing, but is there any screening proposed when this now goes to being open with the, like a kind of dense fabric or any kind of lining? It'll just be open into the storage space.
I mean, we kind of last minute just threw that in there to get this thing in. Yeah, it's not an attractive solution. I'm all behind you on that one. And we could probably look at some screening. But it is permitted, it was approved, so.
And the only concern then is that you'd have to get a mod for the FAR to
Well-
build the second story. If you were to
Yeah,
keep
yeah,
it
I mean,
as it is.
I'd have to absorb 300 plus square feet of floor area. And that would exceed my FAR, and I don't know if they'll let me do screening. They're pretty restrictive on what I can and can't do for that deck below, so.
Staff, can you confirm if screening would be allowed?
Yeah, so just going to be, so enclosed on I think 3 or more sides, I believe it counts as an enclosure, but they could do screening on one side. I would
So if one side is allowed, would they be able to keep their existing elevation and just remove some on the sides?
if we could pull up the image of my help.
Yeah, the south aerial, I think, would be beneficial.
So I can
on page
understand the
2.
question a little more.
So it appears that on the back side, that's open to the landscape, per se. I'm going to zoom in a
Well,
little
it's
bit
just
more.
open to the hill, the grade of the
Yeah.
hill kind of slopes
And then
down.
it appears that there's a partial wall, but not fully enclosed on one side, on the right. I don't know what's on the other side.
It's open.
It's partially open. So if they were to remove those a little bit more, they could potentially keep this wall that's existing on the bottom, or no?
No, we've already opened up the sides.
It's already, you have already opened the
We've
sides.
already opened up as a proposed solution to not count it as floor area, and staff said no.
Correct.
So help me understand that if they were to enclose, keep it open on 3 sides, that doesn't count?
No, that's what we're doing now.
That's what they're doing.
We're removing that wall and just putting
No, but now you're removing all walls.
well, we're going to put a wall that's at rail height.
A guardrail, essentially, right?
Guardrail.
Yeah. There'll be a
Right.
solid guardrail, but the rest of it will be open with the cross bracing.
Correct.
So
Showing.
it's intended, it was permitted as more like a deck, right? So you have a guardrail on this bluff side. And then the back side, being the bluff, counts as one wall.
The bluff counts as a wall? Thanks.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah.
that was the question.
So
Okay,
yeah, it needs to be
got it.
kind of like open on the
Okay.
side, if you will. And
Okay.
then the 2 other walls would be the other sides.
Okay.
So I do recommend if your board has design considerations, you'd like the applicant to, take into consideration when they detail that out more, that would be really helpful for both staff and the applicant. In terms of, material or screening suggestions or solutions. I believe there was, the original design kind of had some trusses. Do I have the word
Yeah,
right?
can you go back to the elevation?
That was
Yeah.
in part the reason why the owner kind of enclosed that side, and then also to use it
The
as
owner never
storage.
touched it, but,
Or prior. Prior owner.
so the original drawings, this is the site. The original drawings show.
That's okay, if you can just go to the proposed, yeah, right there. Can
So
you
this
explain material 5 for us and what's proposed?
It's just basically what you see there, but cut down to 42 inches.
That's helpful,
And then this would be the bracing.
which would be made out of
Which
what
is
material?
steel.
Steel bracing.
Yeah, steel
Okay.
bracing.
And then the remainder would be wood posts.
Those are wood posts
Okay.
with pilings.
Okay.
And then the railing on top would remain the same as it is now.
Okay, and then the proposed railing at the deck by the master suite, is that to match this railing or something else?
It would match the deck
Undecided.
railing, the
Okay.
upper deck railing.
Right, okay. All right, any other questions from the board? Okay, we will move to comments. Board Member Sherry, do you want to start us? Or no?
No, I don't want to start.
Okay. I will start. I'd like to hear from the board as we go, the comments for the FAR. Personally, a little torn. Normally, our recommendation with second stories is to step it back. I think it's helpful and important to consider structure as a part of that, and also adjacencies for the neighbor. I think one thing that we would like to see and understand is the elevation of your neighbor at 1343, and how this proposed second story interacts with their house. I think the visual perspective that you have and the street elevation is helpful. And I think what's hard is that strong height on the right side, which is why stepping it in does help, but I think we'd be open to some options there. I'd like to hear what the rest of the board thinks. I think deck being visible from the front elevation is not ideal and adds, even though it's glass, adds a bit of height, bulk to the front and a lack of cohesion. But I think from the rear elevation feels appropriate. And so if there's a way to reconfigure where it's located on the second story or on that roof, I'd also like to see the materials blend in with the house a little bit better if seen from the street side. I'm wondering for a little cohesion more on the second story from the front elevation windows as well. But in general, I think the having an addition, I think, is nice, but I do support the comments before of studying how can we reduce the visual appearance on the second story from the front. Stepping it back does help from the front street. I do think it's quite a concern how close the second story balcony is to the neighbor, but we can see also in the site plan that seems to be a neighbor condition. And if that's true, I think some more documents showing and or support from that neighbor, but showing screening. It does sound like you have a lot of neighborhood support.
Yeah, they wrote a letter.
Okay,
They looked at the whole thing.
great, okay.
Talking about on the east side?
Yeah, the contrast.
Yeah,
Yeah, east side of Conway's, yes.
Yeah, they're perfectly
And then
fine.
Almac and also the Dugans, they're all,
Okay.
three houses along the side, they've all supported this.
Oh,
Perfect.
apologies. If you would mind turning on your microphone for those tuning in.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry about that.
Thanks. Okay, those are some general comments. Who would like to go next? Board Member Graffiti?
I can jump in.
Okay.
Thank you. I know there were a lot of comments before, and it's a different plan. So I'm still kind of also trying to wrap my head around that a little bit. I'm torn just because some of the comments relating pulling the second story element more central and reducing the FAR, we went in the other direction. I appreciate that some of that FAR was added to the first story, and I don't just use that number and looking at the ranks in the neighborhood and context and everything. It is projected to be one of the larger homes, and one of the others is a guideline FAR. So this is, for me, and looking on Cliff Drive, this is kind of would be the biggest, just when you compare apples to apples on that street. And again, okay with that, but really would want to see the second story element reduced in its appearance of bulk and scale. I think pushing it further towards the property line just adds extra bulk. And even if you, like I said, you mentioned more of the FAR was brought to the first story. When I'm looking at the previous plans and the current plans, it looks bulkier to me on the second floor, and that's at the end of the day what we care most about. So I'm struggling with that. The other thing that I'm struggling a little bit with is the deck. We have a guideline that's typically decks of these sizes. And sorry, when I talk about the deck that's on the second floor west, typically decks of the size we asked, or there's a guideline that we have that it should be 15 feet from the property line. And given the site conditions and 6 feet back, I would probably recommend studying that and minimizing the site and bringing it back away from the fence line as much as possible. And I don't think I have other comments. Those are the two biggest ones for me right now. I mean, if materials are to remain, we'll talk about all of that stuff later. Bottom deck kind of out of our purview to a certain degree. So yeah, those are the two ones for me that I'm having the hardest time kind of getting on board with at this point.
Me? I'm not generally one of the ones that has an issue with projects being proposed over 85%. And but one of the things that I use as a criteria is the style and whether it's an exemplary style. And I thought there was something in our guidelines that said that if you were proposing a project over 85%, then it's you also do the study, and then you do maybe story polls, and then you do some of those other things, the 20 closest homes. But the style is also an issue when you're when you're proposing a project that's bigger. I think that there's a responsibility there to propose something that's aesthetically pleasing and appropriate and not exacerbating too massive of volumes. And I don't think that glass guardrail is helping the architecture. And the fact that you need the room below to get up to it, that room is added to the FAR, and that's exacerbating the floor area ratio as well. I'm also not one of the people that is opposed to glass guardrails in general, but in this house, it doesn't seem to be working with the architectural language. Generally, we see glass guardrails on contemporary homes, and then when they're put just up on a pedestal kind of on their own, and it's the only glass element, it doesn't seem appropriate in this case. I would almost rather see a tower, that looks like, something that adds to the style instead of just I'm not saying do that, but I'm saying that in a way would be a way to get, if it worked with the height limit and it worked with the architectural style, and it didn't add to the FAR, then I would almost rather see that than a glass railing in this particular case. I don't. Speaking of architectural style, I don't think that the two matching windows on the front elevation on the upper level, like the small, large, I don't think that's helping the architectural style either. And I'm not sure what the garage door is, but it looks like just some trim and then maybe windows above, and that's also doesn't seem to be helping the architectural language, which I'm not really sure what it is, but I think that there's some opportunity there to make it better. But I'm not, I guess my point is that I'm not opposed to a home that's closer to 100% if it looks like everything else is falling in place. I don't think that just removing the walls for that storage area, or whatever you want to call it, is making things better. If somebody were wanting a deck now, they would come to us and say, I want a deck, and I'm going to put a screen below it so that it grounds it to the ground. And I almost feel like removing the walls just because it's making it a potential storage area for the skeleton at Halloween is like solving this problem of a room. I think that if we saw this deck coming to our board, we would want it to be grounded in the form of screening, and so I don't think that taking it back to the originally approved style is a good solution, and I don't think the cross bracing is helping either. So I don't know what you do with that, Joe, with that comment, but I
was expecting that comment.
Yeah, I just don't think it's looking good in this current state.
Mostly.
I am not opposed of the high FAR as well, as at all. I think if it's really blurred into the massing and it's bringing more additional space for the homeowners. It's a good idea. But I'm struggling as well, especially from the north elevation, from the cliff drive. And I think that on the FAR table, that house that it's on San Rafael is like a lower on the hill, you know, it's like not a major road like Cliff Drive as you're driving every day. So I think like that helps that house with a higher FAR. But this one, just like, everybody will just drive there, and especially with the sun deck, that's the pause. And if you look at that silhouette, which like the Cliff Drive silhouette, if it was taken like a longer silhouette of the street, we will like understand like how that one is like the Balkan scale. It's just this one has only like the right neighbor and the left neighbor. If you have like 10 homes on the right and left, then we will grasp it from this one. So I think maybe like having a longer silhouette will help for the next review. And the reason I brought up the flat roof in the questions, like I was like asking if you guys maybe in the massing have studied that, because I was struggling with the sun deck, the railing, the contemporary language of that, how it seats on a really like a hip roof. And I don't think it talks to each other really well. Personally, I like the sun deck idea so much. It's a pretty interesting. And if that is something that the client really wants, it's like a one-star geometry that they really want, I think like the roof needs to be studied more so they talk with each other better. It feels like now it's just forced into the roof. And I agree with board member Sherry that like the space underneath it, I was looking at the floor plan. If you flip that one, the floor plan, maybe the sunroom comes to the south and it's not that visible from the Cliff Drive. That will help a little bit, but I don't know then. I think like the request was like we have an outdoor deck on the south and we want that sunroom in the north looking at the mountains. So that's the other thing. So yeah, I'm struggling with the language of the roof with the sunroom railing. The other thing is the north elevation and the east elevation windows, as it was brought up, like the little windows. Yeah, like those little windows. I feel like if the second story with like a higher FAR, it's more floating, more transparent. And I understand that the windows are because of the functions, like the bathroom windows, the little ones. So we are like solving interior functions, but from the exterior point of view, from the public view, we're seeing like the windows that are just serving the functions. So I guess like with this FAR, if there's a solution that the architect can study, like a more floating, transparent, and not as heavy as it seems like now, maybe a solution, if it's not a flat roof, it's like a less sloped gabled roof, that it's like not visible this much from the Cliff Drive and it slopes down towards the south. So there's another thing about the south deck, the exposed steel beams and the new, like now that you have removed the wall, is there any landscape proposed, like trees along that on the south side? Or is it possibility because the land configuration there?
We haven't looked at landscaping in
Oh,
that area,
okay.
but we can.
Okay. Okay, I think like I'll move on if like any other questions come
Yeah,
through.
I think the consensus I'm hearing from the board, we are less concerned with the particular number of the FAR and more about the perceived mass from the main street front elevation. And what I'm hearing is more, can there be consensus of style from the front? And I think some ideas were thrown out. I wouldn't just pick one of them. I would really study how to make it feel like it's one house from the front instead of an addition. I think that appears to be more successful from the rear elevation, where it looks like that was all maybe done from the beginning, where when you look from the front, you can tell these little pieces were added. It sounds like the board is willing to waive some of the 85% requirements, but would like to expand the elevation drawing to include a few more neighbors on either side. Is that correct? Some of the other items that are normally required would be story poles, a survey of sites with higher FAR.
We did that.
That's included.
Yeah.
He did that.
Yeah, they'll need to do that regardless. So I don't think story poles are necessary. I think we can figure them out from the drawings.
Chair Lewis, pardon the interruption. Do you want me to bring up the handout for you guys to just
Yeah, that'd
go
be great.
through? Okay.
Yeah, I think we have enough from the home survey. We don't need the story poles. And if we can just expand the street silhouette, that's in whichever form is best done by the architect, to understand 2 to 3 houses on either side. That doesn't necessarily need to be a photo. It could be an outline silhouette. Would that help the board? You want to see more?
No, I'm familiar with that street and I looked at it, so I don't know how much that will help. And it's hard if that's going to be you. I'm struggling with seeing how that's going to be able to justify the current design if we're aligned on how
I don't
it
think it's about the
presents.
current design. It'll be
Okay.
about seeing
Okay.
the next one fit in.
Yeah.
But Board Member Sherry, do you think?
Yeah, we all know this street. We've
Yeah.
been on it a million times. It's more about, I think for me, it's more about this particular massing
Okay.
and how and what it looks like from the street and what it's saying. What's the architectural language of this house? And is it consistent and appropriate? Or, from a massing standpoint.
Yeah, I agree.
So I don't necessarily believe that the street silhouette is going to justify the glass rooftop railing. We've already got photos. I don't feel story poles are required, and we already have the 20 closest homes. It's more about, to me, the language.
Okay.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Thank you for articulating what I
Okay.
was thinking.
Yeah.
And so, just to clarify for the motion making, is that you guys are gonna be waiving the 20 closest home survey, waiving the story polls?
They've
already
already
on there.
included the 20
already on.
closest home survey. Yeah.
Correct. Okay. So story polls and
Yeah.
other visual aids and the panoramic photo simulations then are going to be waived.
They've already done that.
Well,
Correct.
let's-
We'd like to have the streetscape updated again.
Okay.
But it can be just as much information as they have provided this time, but just updated with a new design.
Okay.
yeah.
So still yes to the photo simulations and then yes to the street silhouette.
In whichever, we're kind of combining them in whichever way they prefer. We want some form of the street
Okay.
front.
So either or.
Either
Okay.
or, yeah.
Thank
So
you.
I will make a motion,
All right,
and that
thanks,
may help
guys.
from there.
Sorry about that.
Okay, so I move to continue this project indefinitely to the full board with the following comments. That the board would like to see a cohesive architectural style and revision to the front elevation to help reduce the visible bulk and provide cohesion between the second story and the first story. The board does not recommend the bird's eye deck visible from the front elevation and is open to variations of studying how the deck integrates with the roof to reduce the visible bulk and cohesion with the roof. The board waives the story pole requirement and would like to see an updated street silhouette or photo simulation of the updated front elevation with 2 adjacent neighbors. The board recommends studying the window size and placement along the north elevation. The board is split on size of second-story deck. Generally, board recommends the deck to be 15 feet from the property line. Some board members were okay with the location given neighbor support and screening. The board understands the FAR requirements about the storage under the existing deck, but aesthetically recommends keeping a solid elevation, if at all possible, with staff. And if not, would like to better understand the proposed aesthetic, the cross bracing.
How,
Struggling.
helping.
I know.
Maybe landscape screening.
That helps a lot, not.
Yeah. Could they do landscape?
Well,
What could
it's
they
more
allowed to
like
do?
The, a raised deck would typically,
Yeah.
But pardon the interruption, Board Members Sherry and Chair Lewis. If we could just continue with the motion and we can open up this specific
to
motion
revise it,
later.
okay.
Yeah, just so we can
Okay,
finish
okay,
the
okay.
motion.
Thanks.
Thank you.
The board is open to seeing options that screen and provide a grounding to that raised deck. The board looks forward to any proposed landscaping and material boards.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, Chair Lewis,
Yes.
Board Member Garfitti,
Yes.
Board Member Moslahi,
Yes.
Board Member Sherry,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for your feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and right on time, we are starting our third item, which is 1322 Dover Road. This is a new item here for concept review. Proposal for a new 2-story, 4,122 square foot home on a nearly vacant lot with a breezeway and attached 2-car carport. The previous home was demolished after fire damage, and existing utilities still remain on site with a pool, foundation, and wall. Previous PLN cases were approved, but building permits were never issued under previous owners. The proposed 4,122 square feet on a 40,027 square foot lot is estimated to be 78% of the maximum guideline floor area ratio. No final appealable decision will take place at this hearing. Neighborhood preservation findings and hillside design district and slope lot findings will be required at PDA. So welcome. Are there staff comments?
Yes, just a minor staff comment here. The applicant uploaded new plans. I decided to have them presented here today because the changes were aesthetic only and very minor, did not affect the overall mass, bulk, or scale, and seemed okay to still be heard. So if you guys have questions about the specific differences, the applicant can share those, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So if you can make sure your microphones are on, state your name for the record, and walk us through the drawings. It looks like you have a second tab on there for photos.
Oh, yeah, it looks like that.
There you
That's
go.
correct. Just by way of introduction, I'm Glenn Longarini. I'm the owner and project manager, not a design professional. Matt is our designer. I think that description of the project was adequate. I'd just add, the original home was built in design in the mid-50s, and it was a Nutra mid-century modern. It was a beautiful house. It was largely destroyed by fire and then partially demolished prior to my wife and I purchasing it this year. So we understand there was a previous SFDB approval for a much larger house. We, as a family, decided we wanted something a little more consistent with the old plan. It's slightly smaller than the original house that was destroyed. And we're going for an aesthetic that's a Spanish colonial revival, a la more Santa Barbara influences. So with that, I'll turn it over to Matt.
Hi, you guys. Thank you for having me. My name's Matt Steen. I work for Bergalt Drafting and Design, and I've been working with Glenn on this to design his future home. As you guys have mentioned, it was a previously burned down structure. Part of our design idea was to kind of maintain that existing building footprint or stay within the parameters of that. I have dashed in that existing building footprint there to kind of show everybody what our idea. We do exceed that building footprint in a couple of areas, mainly on the garage side. We did widen the garage, as well as a small bump out in the front. And then the rest of it was actually reducing the size and the square footage. The parameters that we worked with the design within is the existing pool deck is in place. It is in good condition. The swimming pool was full of water until recently, I believe.
Last week.
So we kind of use that pool deck as our elevation for the main living area. The two-story concept comes from the garage area where you have to drive into the garage, and then we have an entry foyer that leads to the interior staircase up to the living area. Moving on, this is just a larger version of the cover sheet site plan only with some of the notes taken off. As far as finishes, this is our kind of inspiration, our colors that we are proposing for wood trims, metal railings. We are going with a one-piece or Santa Barbara Mission style roof. Colors are going to be consistent with that Santa Barbara style, Santa Barbara smooth stucco finish, lighter in color. Wood door be arched or rounded to kind of bring in that field, and then more of a Geldman style, kind of more of a modern concept with the window styles, but it worked out well for this design because we do have some modern influences. And then the gutter, pretty simple, 5-inch round, basic. There was a survey done of the lot before the foundation, or after the house was demoed, I should say, showing that the driveway is in place. The current foundation is predominantly in place, and the pool deck are all in place. Moving forward to kind of design layout, you do see the 2-car garage. Initially, this was one of the design changes, so I will kind of expand on that. Originally, we were showing a carport. We have decided that the garage doors did add a architectural feel to it, so we did add the garage doors and went with more of a conventional garage. And then we deepened the entry at the entry foyer into the vestibule to give it some more reveal and to add more of a slanted or tapered walls, once again to just try to increase the architectural feel of it. We also deepened the front wall that faces the street. That took away from interior square footage. That did not expand the footprint. So anywhere that you see the addition of furred walls or double studded walls, that is all pushed interior. So it takes away from viable square footage, but it still works for the design and kind of reduce the amount of interior space. Moving on to the second floor, you do see the Juliet balconies that we've introduced on the front elevation. Very simple iron, pre-manufactured Juliet balconies, which you'll see some more detail that I've added to this, just kind of basically expanded on those details after watching a few of your design meetings to try to be a little bit proactive. The other addition or change to these plans was we removed the fireplace interior idea between the living room and the dining room because we didn't feel that an electric fireplace really spoke to this home. And it did give us the opportunity to add more windows at the front. Obviously, that takes in the view of where this house is located and the ocean views, the view of the Santa Barbara Bowl, so on and so forth. Finally, the final change was that covered seating area adjacent to the kitchen. You see that we have pushed that out slightly to give it a little bit more depth on the roof line, but it also provides some functionality to the homeowner where that's kind of your entertainment area, that is the flat area, where his family will be hanging out majority of the time. So those kind of summarize the changes. We've also incorporated some of the furred walls on the front side facing, just to give it some window relief and some depth in order to really kind of draw on those features. Moving on, the roof plan stays the same. I think originally it was called at 5 and 12. We actually reduced that to 4 and 12 because we felt it was actually better for the style. I'm not sure if I called that out in the initial presentation, but it is called out now. And then you can see the change here of that covered outdoor eating area, or sitting area. These are the 3D views from the updates. I did give you more of a driveway and a street view. I don't know if those were originally provided but are in the first submittal, but I did provide them this time. There was the introduction of a spa as well. I forgot about that. I should have pointed that out. The pool is existing. There is going to be a remodel in the pool and incorporating a spa into that design as well. So that is now shown on the site plan as well as on our 3D renderings. And then a little bit more detail on that carriage detail. That's the bridge or the breezeway. It was really trying to incorporate a very specific design idea and make it unique. You do see that in some, I think the inspiration came from some Santa Barbara style homes. So I put some little bit more detail into that to kind of give it what we're envisioning there. I know originally it was very basic. And then obviously you see the addition of the garage doors. And then going on the two-dimensional elevations, these are consistent with the changes. The railing, or the Juliet balconies, this is more along the ideas of what we're going to be doing for that railing look. More diagonal as opposed to vertical balusters. That's kind of, once again, driven from the architectural standpoint of seeing stuff within the city, where you see some unique railing details that we really wanted to try to incorporate.
Can I interject one second? I think just to generalize on some of that detailing, I think as we're evolving, the details are very important for all styles, but in this one, for his client, me, and also for Matt, we've also sought out a couple local iron workers to even elaborate more, like a hand-pounded, vine that comes up on the Juliet and everything. We just haven't had a chance to really refine all that in the future. Matt mentioned we recessed the windows to give more depth to that. We've also on the roof, which we didn't mention, and I think are in some details, is that, we are going to boost the edge of the roof. It's two-piece tile, and extend the top pan over the gutter. Because it sits so high up the street, you don't really see anything but the roof edge. So we're going to spend a little more attention to that detail.
Yep, and I do get into that slightly. No, that's perfect. I'm kind of briefly going over this a little bit quicker, just because I'm sure you guys have looked at it and going to have questions. So once again, this is just an expanded carriage detail as far as showing how we're planning on doing that with the hardy plank or the hardy trim. That will have a separate eave detail, as opposed to the majority of the residents will be a stuccoed eave with some depth to it, but then the carriage will be exposed rafter tails and then a hardy plank siding, which will probably be hand painted. And you see there the building height envelope, that's based on the slope of the thing, to show you that we do maintain under that 30-foot max. The building actually dropped, I believe, 7 inches once we changed the roof pitch as well. So I think we're sitting at 28 foot 1 inches overall building height if you were measuring from low grade at the garage side. But I know that's kind of dynamic in how it's taken into consideration for a hillside home. Pretty straightforward on this rear elevation. Really no changes other than the man door that was added to the garage once we went from a carport to a garage. So that's your exit point there. On the left side elevation, you'll see the coving or the slanted or walls to provide tapered, to give us that entry cove, to give it, and once again, the railing is more of the diagonal as opposed to a vertical. Finally, I do get into some more details as far as kind of what we're going to do with the double walls that we're showing on the front of the residence, as well as carried through the side, and how we're going to recess that window. I also get into some of the eave soffit, what we're going to be doing at the eave for a majority of the house, as well as for the eave at the carriage. So with the exposed rafter tail, this is the extension of the roofing material beyond the fascia. You'll have, that'll just kind of give it another aspect, and it'll still allow for the gutter to be tucked underneath and fed from the valley of the roofing material, essentially. So exterior finish is pretty much predominantly stucco, except for the carriage, which will be a hardy or a siding material. And then I think that was it as far as the presentation, as far as what the plans are showing. The photos that Glenn updated or uploaded previously, maybe I'll let him walk you through them, since he is very familiar with this site now. If you want to take over on that.
Yeah, sure. And we also got some staff comments that we're missing a few photos, so I'll work on whatever those are. But do you want us to stop here and shift, or? Oh, okay. So first, top left is you're standing at the street at Dover Hill and Dover Road intersection, looking up the driveway. The picture immediately to the right is from the parking area looking down that driveway. The picture lower left is my wife in the, that's at the pool deck on the east side. So where you see the old slab, you kind of see the transition, the exposed aggregate finish and the smooth slab. That's the old slab. That is now essentially the kitchen area. We moved in about 5 feet to reduce for a number of reasons, but it ended up reducing the footprint of the house. The north slope, these pictures are probably a bit uninteresting from the house perspective, but I think as it relates to, we heard some mention of landscape plan. We did not submit a landscape plan, and it's somewhat intentional because there's very little ground that's essentially disturbed. Like we have to do a big retaining wall and back to achieve the H/2. So those areas will need to be landscaped. It's pretty slight.
Yeah,
but
more rehab than
most of the slope area is either established like that north slope or down below where it's planted and irrigated. Just the irrigation's not been on for some time. As you can see, it's partially demolished. Those are existing foundation walls from the previous structure. Those columns were for the deck. And then wheel down a little bit there. Yep. So there you're looking across the slab east to west towards the pool area in the back. You're at the upper right is you're standing at the carport, what was the carport area. Now you're at the front garage door looking up at the future residence. Those bottom two are just merely at the site just to show what the existing foundations were. Okay.
I think that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Go back to the front here.
We'll move to public comment.
Thank you, Chair Lewis. I'll start with in-person public comment. At this time, I do not have any slips for this project. However, if anyone wishes to make a comment, they may fill one out and bring it to me. I see no one in the audience moving to do so, so we will turn our attention to virtual comment. And at this time, I do not have any hands raised for virtual comment, and we did not receive any written correspondence for this project. So at that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Lewis.
Okay, thank you. We will start with questions from the board. Does anyone want to go first? Okay.
Just a couple of questions. What is the intent of the trim of the doors and windows? You show a second line around them, but what are you proposing there?
So that's going to be a very simple stucco trim. So you're seeing where the actual is about 6 inch above and below the window for flashing and so on and so forth. But it will just be a stucco inlay and just a recessed window. So a very simple detail. Where
I did hear you clarify that you definitely intend on doing a diagonal railing.
Correct.
And so I guess what my question is, what's the inspiration for that, because you have other railings that are not diagonal. You're mixing.
We actually had a
You must have
conversation
a
about that.
reason for that.
No, very well. We actually had a conversation about today. The front railings, and please interject if you feel
No,
necessary.
yeah, I'd be happy to. I mean, we're trying to add a little bit of character to the Juliet balcony because it's right at the front elevation. The railing on the rest of the rest as a
rear
safety
staircase.
railing and all, quite frankly, was just a matter of, drafting and getting it in place to show the safety rail. We hadn't, because it's not attached to the house, we really hadn't thought much about the styling of that railing yet.
Okay. That's all.
That's the,
And I do want to mention, we also are showing a glass railing at the front covered patio
saw
area.
that.
Yeah, and so I did want to bring that up because glass was proposed there, more of a windbreak as well, because there will be patio furniture there. It does provide some relief from the wind, so that's why that glass railing was proposed.
yeah, after the last case, we thought, oh.
Well, the glass railing's required because it's over 30 inches from grade.
What it could have still been a cable or a metal railing as a baluster railing.
It's okay. You answered my question.
Okay.
And then how does the water get through the tile to the gutter if the gutter is over the,
Yeah, the
if the
bottom
gutter's
pan-
underneath it?
Yeah, the bottom pan drains into the gutter. The top pan is just aesthetic.
Is aesthetic, is just like an overhang of that tile. So it attaches to it and hangs over, but the valley will still lead into the gutter. Does that make
I'm
sense?
not sure I
Can you
understand,
go to
but
the detail?
Yeah.
it's okay.
I will go into more detail of that and to show how that will work in further
Okay,
detail,
well, I think
absolutely.
it'll come up in comments too.
Okay.
But, those are my questions. Thanks.
I have a question. Will you go actually to your rendering, because they're different than the ones we're looking at, so that'd be helpful. And you've given examples, on the cover sheet of a more traditional Spanish colonial, but then you also mentioned modern elements. What are you trying to go style-wise?
We are trying to stay true to the Santa Barbara colonial revival style, but I noticed with some of the larger windows and things like that, it does somewhat shift towards maybe some modern influences. But our overall goal is to stay as Spanish and true to Santa Barbara as possible.
Okay. And you're showing wood, not steel for the doors, is that correct, and windows?
The windows are metal.
Oh, steel, okay.
Yeah. The entry front door would be a wood stain grade.
But some of the other,
Yeah,
Okay.
like the
The
patios.
windows and the sliders are metal, yeah,
okay.
with a thermal break.
Board Member Mosley?
Yeah. You mentioned that the previous house, which was burned, was a Neutros house. When I was reviewing this before the meeting, when I saw before seeing the 3Ds, looking at the floor plans, I thought it's more contemporary house, the way that the configuration of the floor plans are. And my question is, was this before this idea of before this the Spanish colonial style that we are seeing now in the 3D? Was it studied as a more contemporary house and then shifted towards the Spanish? Is it like a transition?
Do you mean through me?
Yeah,
That's a
through
client?
the first round of design and study. Yeah.
We didn't give it a lot of thought for the following reasons. First of all, the house was destroyed, demolished actually beyond. I mean, as a builder, if I'd gotten a hold of that house right after the fire, it would probably be a very, very similar house built from the inside out. But, that we only got into the deal in the last few months. So it was a blank sheet of paper. The design guidelines for the city clearly favor Spanish colonial. It happens to be my personal style. So we really didn't go modern, but there is some modern influence.
Yeah.
We did we undivided some big glazing that's undivided. More glazing than probably typical. We introduced some archways, not at the window, but, more at the garage door and the entry to give it some arching.
And as far as space plan goes, really the I guess inspiration or kind of the design, kind of what drove that was staying within that building footprint and using as much of it as possible. it was laid out as a very long home.
Linear contemporary,
Yes.
that's why.
So it was like, okay, so let's use this. We know that this works for the lot. Obviously, it worked for, architects that were much more schooling than I did. So I said, let's use that to our, in our favor and try to build off of that. And then also trying to reduce square footage. He didn't want, the overall goal was to have something under or close to 4,000 square feet. So I know that the original was over 5,000, I believe, if I recall. And I think the other planning case that was even bigger than that. So that's just not the direction that we wanted to do. Even though the site would support it, it just wasn't what my client wanted. So.
I think the rest will be in the comments, yeah. No questions.
One more question. The breezeway, what are you thinking material or connection on like the surface there of that?
Sure. The ground surface? Yeah, the ground surface will be a pedestrian pathway that meanders with some landscaping pockets in it, which is a point of clarification we're going to have to make with staff because it had the appearance of being parkable, which is not really with the grade and where the retaining wall is, and so we're gonna come back with more exhibits to show that. It'd be very difficult to get a car in there, but we're gonna make it so that it's not parkable.
And soften it, so it's not just a bunch of hardscape or,
Yes.
we're gonna soften that feel, so it's more of walking through kind of a garden feel as opposed to use it for vehicle access or anything like that.
Okay, and then it looks like one of the other things that changed from what we have versus what you have is almost like a raised carport with all these openings versus a standard garage with a solid wall on the back. Is that correct?
That's correct,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, I should have incorporated that note into when I said we put garage doors on it. There was a little bit more that went into that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And then is there any site wall or fencing on the side of the house by the pool, or does the landscape come up? What's happening there?
Sure. I could, you
fire
mean
away.
at the edge of the hardscape as it transitions?
Right,
So
right.
there's a few feet of flat before it descends into a 2-to-1 slope down towards the driveway. There is no, it's existing. There's currently no fencing.
Basically like the
railroad.
patio edge and then the landscape starts. There's no like
Correct. There's
curb
no
or
grade
anything.
break.
Okay.
We will be handling, there'll be a treatment that we need to deal with because now the house does not go to the patio anymore. We pulled it in a few feet.
Okay.
So we have a retaining wall that will need to come out and grab that grade, which will necessitate some railing, safety railing.
Yeah. Yeah, so this existing wall here is existing, still in place, and we're going to protect that wall in place because the pool is designed into that.
Sorry, Chair Lewis, were you asking about the front or the
No,
back?
the front,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What I addressed was the front. yeah.
Gotcha, yeah. So it just literally dies into it. I think it's about 8-inch step, 10-inch step on that edge currently.
It's a grade.
Yeah, so it's,
Okay. Okay. Okay, any other questions from the board? Board Member Graffiti? No? Okay. Yes.
Pardon me. Chair Lewis, I would also like to, if it's possible for you to consider to continue this project to the consent level, if any of you feel comfortable with that at all. I just wanted to throw that out there. Thank
Okay.
you.
Why are you saying that?
It's just a general question always, I think.
It's-
Yeah,
yeah,
just in
the-
case to make sure we
he's
make it as
leading
a
you on
part of
my
our
behalf.
motion.
To board member Sherry's point, what are you trying to say? To board member Sherry's point, to explain myself a little bit here, is that SFDB full board agenda is packed all the way up until I think early October. So there's a considerable amount of time before we can get projects rescheduled. And whenever I have projects that I think are demonstrate compliance with the guidelines and aesthetically, comments could be addressed at the consent level by a single board member after discussing, major items here at the full board, that there may be an opportunity to consider some of those project design approval findings and even final approval findings at the consent level, because consent members at that point might feel a little bit more comfortable having discussed the larger implications of the
Got it.
project.
Thank
So,
you.
yeah, thank you.
All right. I do have one more question, which is, what experience or methods are you using to design the Spanish style details?
As far in, well,
Would you repeat the question?
yeah, it's kind of,
Yeah. Are you looking at other examples? Have you done Spanish colonial before? Are you familiar with some of the local architects in town, historic ones, and reference their drawings? I want to know what kind of background you have in this to tailor the comments.
Yeah, we have done some Spanish, so I am familiar with some of
Okay.
it. I do have my partner as well as
Okay.
far as a resource, who's been doing this I've been doing it for about 15 years. He's been doing it for about 43.
Okay.
So we do have those. And then also, I mean, as far as studying, no, but I have taken, I've actually spent the night up here last night, just
Yeah.
walking neighborhoods and taking in pictures and things like that to try, I mean, in full transparency, this is my first time in Santa Barbara in front of you guys. So I am kind of learning on the go, but
No, it'll
I
be
do
helpful
pay
in how we
attention.
tailor our comments.
Perfect, and
Yeah.
Smarter than I look,
Yeah.
I promise.
And I think we've been fed with some, a lot of local examples of that. We've been, my family lives out here. We're moving to town for the grandkids, that kind of thing. So my wife and I have been driving around quite a bit. And so we've been feeding pictures of things we like and we don't like. And I have to say, it's sort of client driven, some of that mix of a little more traditional as you get towards the garage in that area, and maybe a little bit less as you start getting to the right and getting some bigger glass exposures. There's a pretty tremendous view too that the client's trying to capture, and so that's why you see undivided lights and things like that. So
Yeah, well, and I see a variation happen, just from what we see here versus here, and I see the details coming. The one thing that I'll recommend is studying George Washington Smith and some of his details. So he's done a lot of work here in town. He's deceased, but there's a lot of examples and a lot of details, and I think that this project is going to rely heavily on the details to come across successfully as a
Yeah.
Spanish colonial style.
that pan detail, by the way, that the board member Sherry brought up is from a Smith that we're working on.
Oh, great.
In Hope
Okay.
Ranch.
That's where
Yeah.
we
Great.
got it.
That's where we saw it, and we said the same thing. I said, why is that tile off past the gutter? That doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense, and then we figured it out.
The thing that, I think in general, the massing, it works, and it does work with some of the colonial styles that you'll see, and there's this balance over symmetry that you see a lot in the Spanish style. And so I think in general, the massing works. The thing that I would like to see is that front street elevation really commit to the Spanish colonial, and that if you want to introduce maybe more modern elements, that they start to happen on the rear and wrap around and maybe the pool side. And so that means looking at, actually, will you go to the rendering because it's different than ours,
Yeah,
and I'd
yeah,
like
yeah.
to reference it here.
So probably something
Yeah,
like
maybe
that.
zoom in on the lower right. I think that could help. So some of the things that are important is your balance of plaster and wall space versus glazing. And so along those three large windows that you have into, I think it's the living room, is studying different divided light options for sure, but also looking at the proportion of the plaster and divisions around it to give the effect of the Spanish colonial. It needs to kind of have that structure and weight there. And there's some really great steel examples and some details that you'll see. But all of the kind of windows, it kind of varies on elevations versus rendering on the window placements and the corbels. And I think that you'll want to be mindful of that with the Juliets as well. We see that on here versus there. I think the study that you're starting to get to with that kind of bridge is helping versus what we see here. But definitely study the arches and some of the segmented arches that you have. And I think it will be important for us to understand the landscaping that's proposed right in front of the building as well. And the neighborhood context images are important as well. It looks on the site plan that you have a neighbor.
You want me to go back
Just,
then?
I think I might. There we go. We see a tiny bit of an outline for one of the neighbors on the side closest to the carport. And we would like to see some form of a site plan that shows where the outlines of the two adjacent neighbors are to your property. those are some general comments. I may come back with some more. Other comments from the board?
I'll just segue off of Chair Lewis's comments that I agree with. I think that what we're seeing is kind of the house from right to left is we're seeing contemporary to Spanish and paying attention to all those details is going to be very important. And but I agree that the mass and the scale of the house in general is acceptable. And I think that this house could have gone in a contemporary way, but it's also can be very successful as a Spanish colonial revival home. And I've seen longer Spanish colonial revival homes that have been successful, you know, with as long as the detailing works.
Yeah.
And so the one-piece mission tile is not going to be approvable. You're going to want a two-piece.
Okay. We actually did change, we talked about that today as well, so.
And then you can have the larger windows, the larger glazing, but it's just how you do it.
Gotcha.
The small, thin pieces of plaster in between large windows is more of a contemporary detailing and not Spanish. There's ways of doing large panes of glass and making it look like a wall of glass, but still there are examples in this style that are helpful. The glass railing isn't going to work for this style. It looks like the height might be, if that's a 42-inch high railing, it looks like that covered patio is really high. I'm not sure that it is, but it's, when I look at the left side of the house, I'm starting to understand that language and that proportion with the heights of the headers, but then I'm sensing that beam and that span of that beam is that the span is not going to work for you'll find that when you start researching the details, that when you get into a 16, 17-foot span, it's not going to read as Spanish anymore. The spacing of the corbels underneath that cantilever, diagonal railings are not going to work. But I understand and appreciate you wanting to make that Juliet balcony stand out. There's going to be a way to do that that's going to work. And don't forget the windows on the lower level, should need to be treated with the same respect as the upper level. It looks kind of like it got forgotten when it gets down there. And plaster trim is not going to be appropriate either. You're going to want a bullnose plaster trim, and I appreciate that you've thickened the walls for that plaster massing. That is really going to allow you to do that, but the stucco plaster is not going to be in keeping with that style either. A landscape plan for the whole site, I think, is really important, and especially where it meets the building. And I think those were my comments. Yeah.
Okay, I agree with what's been said. I think the scale and size and bulk are appropriate. Continue to study the detailing. I think at this point, I probably wouldn't feel comfortable reviewing this at consent, although I could always bring somebody else on board if the board feels differently. But I think it will be a great project, just working out kind of the details to make the style cohesive. And I appreciate you saying that you do want Spanish style, but I also want to say that's not necessarily from our perspective as a board that we're always pushing Spanish style. I want to make sure that that's, it sounded like that might be thought from your side, but we're more, along the lines of what's in the neighborhood, what does the client want or the applicant want, and also kind of picking a style. You can blend a little bit, but picking a cohesive style that works. So in case you didn't want a Spanish and you were just thinking that was maybe more favorable from our side, I just wanted to make that clear.
Understood.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks.
Board Member Mosley?
I agree with all the comments that was made, and I think like the bridge is making like the linear contemporary plan in 3D. When we look at it in three-dimensional, it's breaking it and it's making it more towards the Spanish style that you are looking for. One board member, Sherry, was mentioning the lower level windows. I was looking at the rear elevation and the left elevation. Those windows are as important as well. For example, on left side elevation, there's a little window on the upper level, which is the bathroom window. And that's where your neighbor is on your west side, I think. And I know that rear elevation, you don't have a neighbor, but still, I think like in order to be like cohesive for the architectural style, that needs to be thoughtful, especially like the relationship of the where the roof stops and the windows down below it. These are important as well. The other thing, I was looking at the entry door that was proposed. It seemed like, I don't know, like the previous renders that we were looking at is a little bit different, but I felt like it was meant to be like a tower maybe, but it's not like a tower. Was it like a purpose for that, to bring a tower, to have the element, like this, I'm looking at that
Yeah,
part.
sure. Yeah.
The massing seems like you wanted to do a tower to have like emphasize on the entry, but then it's just like when we look at it on the elevation, the height of it is like even like maybe lower than the other side.
Yeah, well, the intent wasn't to be a tower, it was to be able to get to your other point, mixed into that was the previous house entered from, well, what is now the breezeway.
Oh,
And I didn't like that. I wanted to be able to see the front door, so we brought that out forward. It does, I get it, it does sort of appear like the tower, but we've utilized the top as a bedroom.
Well, I think what would be good there is really studying that full elevation above the door and treating it as one kind of cohesive element.
Do you want the roof to pop?
No. Just the window right now and the elevation's kind of lacking. You know, actually go to your
my
example of picture for color reference and stucco texture
gotcha.
only. You know, there's a balance and cohesiveness above it of you've got this heavy door and above it you've got this kind of heaviness as well that works together and kind of signals that this is your entry. And so right now, I think what board member mostly he is pointing out is it feels a bit like a side door and kind of forgotten and really studied that full composition for how that works together.
You get that.
Yeah, in this scale of house, like the entry door is like something that you want to like focus and emphasize. The other thing is like contextually, because the north side is the hill going up, and from south, I don't think there's, with the landscaping that will be proposed, we don't see the house that much. The only thing, if you cut a section from east to west, like a east-western section with the neighbors, and just have a silhouette of the neighbors on the side, I think like that worth a study because of the neighbor, like a good neighbor guidelines.
Yeah.
Just to see like how tall we are comparing to the, like a really cut a section. That would be really helpful to progress. Like when we are getting closer to the east and west, be thoughtful of like where are we comparing to our neighbor heights, because I think like the west side house is like a mid-century modern, like a flat roof, and it's pretty low. So I think like a study of that will be helpful to develop the mass.
Yeah, another comment, when you're studying the landscape, I think it's worth looking into that transition between the pool deck and the landscape as well. It's quite a contemporary condition right now, and to coordinate with the style of the house is to coordinate the landscape and the siding and, you know, whether it, you know, what the pool deck material is, but whether it gets a sort of ledge rather than this kind of free fall off.
We have been considering that front edge, having it, you know, a sort of an eyebrow, you know, with the small retaining wall. To your point, it's all coming out.
Right.
And was going to be replaced with impervious, or sorry, pervious pavement. And so at that same time, we thought, well, let's not just do a straight edge, perhaps. That's a discussion we just had the other day.
Yeah, I think we
That's
were
kinda
looking
where you're
into
going there?
just something there to give it,
Warm it up a little.
yeah, and that boundary, that, and again, to Board Member Graffiti's point, you don't have to do Spanish, but doing the Spanish, especially Spanish colonial of this scale, these details are very important, and that's what we'll want to be looking at, and that's ultimately what's going to make it. I
Okay,
think.
understood.
So, let's see.
Can I add
Yes,
a little
mhm.
thing? I saw that on the side panel, you guys proposing solar panels on the hill on the north. So that will be something that will, from the lower streets, will be visible.
Well, oh, sorry, on the hill?
Yeah.
Yeah, we just did a study, what it looks like on that street level for my
Yeah.
neighbor across the way. And like I said, especially with the 4 and 12 now, you don't see the roof, you see the ridge.
Okay.
So we're now gonna put it on that south elevating roof with a pan. So
Okay.
it'll be
That was,
recessed.
yeah, that was the
Yeah,
original.
the concern was just like the reflection
100%.
from the, like when you're
It-
driving up.
It was the
so-
old, they
was the
had
old
solar
solar
there.
field that
And
was
so,
Got
yeah,
it.
so we were just gonna put it in the same
We
place.
were kind of protecting it in place as an option. And
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Solar panels are outside of our
Okay.
purview, but,
But we are gonna,
Okay.
we're gonna dress it
Yeah.
and get it lower than the tile. Or flush.
great. I'm gonna make a motion, but while I do so, can you bring back up the rendering, just so I can make sure I touched on all the points? I move to continue this project indefinitely to the full board with the following comments. The board is generally in support of the mass and scale of the residence. The board would like to see neighborhood context photos and the adjacent neighbor silhouette on the site plan. The board recommends studying Spanish-style detailing and update the elevations to correspond, including studying of wrought iron railing, proportions of plaster to glazing, corbels and exterior lighting. One-piece mission tile is not approved. The board recommends two-piece mission tile roofing. Glass railings at the front elevation are not approved. Would like the applicant to study conditions that correspond with the architectural language of the house. The board recommends studying window proportions, headers, and locations. The board would like to see a concept landscape plan. And the board looks forward to additional architectural details and color boards. Anything?
I'll second.
Okay.
Chair Lewis,
Yes.
Board Member Graffiti,
Yes.
Board Member Moslahi,
Yes.
Board Member Sherry,
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you all for your time.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Okay, and now we're a little late. We are on to our last item, which is a concept review for 3627 Campanile Drive. Proposal to demolish the existing single-unit residence and attached garage. Proposal to construct a 4,043 square foot, one-story single-unit residence and 750 square foot attached three-car garage. The project also includes site improvements, landscape and hardscape, a 1,200 square foot accessory dwelling unit, is permitted and not part of the SFDB purview. The proposed total of 5,994 square feet of development on a 61,561 square foot lot is 115% of the maximum guideline Florida lot area ratio. No final appealable decision will take place at this hearing. You're welcome. Any staff comments for this one?
Yes, I did have one staff comment for this project. So this project does require a HOA approval. At this time, we haven't received an official letter for approval. We did receive public comment with concerns about that. So I sent an email back to the public commenter clarifying that we cannot schedule this project before the board for project design approval nor final approval until we receive HOA approval. So just wanted to clarify that.
Okay.
And that's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So if you can make sure your microphones are on and state your names for the record, and then you'll have 15 minutes to walk us through your concept.
Sure. My name is Richard Johnson, the architect. With me is the owner, Dr. Paula Kislek, and the world-famous Chris Kemple, landscape architect. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
As you know, Campanile Hill, the Wishbone Hill, up on top of near the mesa. You can see the vicinity map there in the middle. I think Sebastian went over the FAR issues. The statements, we'll go by that. Existing site plan shows the adjacent buildings. The one on the right, which is to the east, is at a lower elevation by about 6 feet. The one on the left, which is the west direction, is about 8 feet above our driveway level. Our existing building is elevation 64, which we will be repeating the same floor elevation with our proposal. Scrolling to the next picture, you get some renderings, ideas of what the building is going to look like. The vegetation along the street, the site wall, the driveways between the site wall and the building, and the ridge you see on the left is 14 feet high, as well as over behind the palm trees on the right is 14 feet high. The existing house is 14 and 13 foot high ridge going all the way across there. The ridge in the middle, we are at 18 feet high, and then we have a little Campanile bell tower, which is 24 feet high, 6 feet higher than. The height limit here is 30 feet. And scrolling down, we see the north elevation, the chimney to the left there. Left of that is the bedroom wings, which is a study and the master suite. From the chimney to the right is the great room, including the sitting area, dining room, and kitchen area. Then you have a courtyard area, and then that's the existing ADU back there in the back to the right. Scrolling down, we have the driveway view to the house, showing the entry to the house. Stepping up a few steps, going through an iron gate, you have a patio entry enclosure, and then a patio to the right, which goes around the private bedroom air wings. And then you straight ahead is the front doors going in underneath the entry form there. That entry form is a little bit sans developed at this time. I will be putting more detail into that as time goes on. But it's basically stone trim, stone top on the walls, and pavers along the driveway, stone lower retaining walls meandering around the trees. Looking for my cheat sheet here where I have all my good words written down. Scrolling down again, I guess Sebastian mentioned we have a neighbor across the street, and this is the diagram in reference to that house. You can see our house on the left in this drawing here. You see the little tower there, and they are oriented in such a way that we have this big pine tree here called a stone pine, but it's not really a stone pine, but it looks like one. And you see the ridge here of the existing house that's 14 feet high. And you see the little triangle here with the triangle, that's our ridge line, which is then the 18-foot high. You can see the outline of our addition, if you want to call it an addition, our new building. And you see the tile roof of the existing house and the existing driveway and landscaping. The site sections from the adjacent house above and below is diagrammed here. They're basically 10 feet above us, 12 feet, something like that. Looking at the neighborhood pictures, the house across the street that we just mentioned is this house in the middle. Up to the west, the site slopes up to the west, and there's a lot of trees there and vegetation between the homes and the street, like we are doing. And to the east, to the left, there is the more vegetation. This is our existing driveway, which is really a cumbersome thing because it's very narrow. And you rise up and then you drop down 18%, bam, right to the lower level of our existing grade. So when your hood is up in the air there looking down, you can't see where you're going. You just have to take faith in God you're going to land on something in the right direction. Anyway, and then our neighbor's home driveway is to the left of ours. Looking down the street towards the east, you can see the Rincon Mountains beyond. Looking down our driveway and our 3 garages, which we're also having 3 garages in our proposal. This is the frontage. If you can get a warped view, it's really straight, but this is kind of a fisheye thing. There's an existing ficus hedge up there, some miscellaneous tree clumps, bushes up there going towards that existing driveway. Coming down here to the right is the neighbor's driveway, and that's our property line there at that light post. These other fixtures, pictures look to the east towards the Rincon. There's actually an ocean view down there and white water and a little bit of the harbor, the marina. And, Don Sherry's not here for that? Oh, Don Sherry knows the marina really well. And, this is just a picture of the eastern view with taken today and not too clear a day, but you can see just a hint of the ocean down there. And so it's really quite delightful. It's all the way down to Ventura if you have a keen eye. Looking closer to the existing home that's there now, that's the existing house on the north side. Up here is on the south side facing the street. More of that. Views from the site. Again, the overall Google Earth map showing our little house here. And very contemporary flat roof structure to the east, and the standard house here to the left, out to the west, which has been there for quite a while. Ettinger designed that house. You guys may have remembered that a few years ago. And then if anybody knows Brian Escalera, he lives in that house right there. And this is the end of the cul-de-sac here, and that driveway goes on out to what we used to call the Shaw's sister's house out on the point with all the little palm trees dancing along the ridge line. And I guess they're up to something now, to remodeling. Again, back to local driveways on either side. I don't want to drag this out too much and keep you guys awake. Dialogue here with the soils engineer. Do I want that? Is that going to come clear? Thank you. That's my first time. Glad to meet you. This is, well, let's go to our developed site plan here. That's a key map. We'll go to the larger scale. That's a larger scale. Come on. Okay. The driveway slopes from the left to the right downhill about 20 feet across the front of the project. We are 215 feet wide on our property here, so we have lots of width on there. So we're dropping in here at the lower level, coming in, rising up a little bit to the front door level. And we're at this point of the driveway, we're about 4 feet below the actual floor level, so that you step up a little transition into the house with a little bit of graciousness past some experience of delightful design elements by somebody. And we go through a little iron gate here, the steps. We go through entry courtyard with a little rill going from fountain to fountain. And then there's a entry portico across the front with the entry structure. As you can see, the little walls right there and there hold up the entry structure. And there's the front door. And inside we have the campanile and the view to the mountains beyond. Crosswise, to counteract that vertical form there, we have the gallery coming from the garage area to the master area. The gallery is our tall element. It is a south-facing 14-foot high glass. We'll see it in a minute. Well, you saw it before. South-facing sun-collecting element, and we're having marble tile floors and that kind of thing. The upper levels of these walls going into these bedrooms here also have glass in them, so they will be receiving sun from that south window as well. So it's kind of a solar element. Entry patio here, as we mentioned, this is a play area off the gallery and off the garage. And there's bedroom private patios over here on the eastern side. That eastern view down the coast is quite spectacular, as I mentioned. Driving through our cobblestone driveway, the meandering stone wall here, which is only about 2.5 feet tall, is studded with trees. So you're going through a meandering. I'm out. I timed out. Am I dragging this on? I'm sorry.
No, let me see. That's never happened to me before.
Is it my fault?
No, I don't think so.
No.
Thank you.
Let's see.
You're a good guy.
I have my moments. Let's see if that works out. I forget what page you're on. But
Just the building floor plan.
there we go. I think it's okay. There it is.
There it is.
All right.
Thanks a lot, guy. The client desired a nice driveway meandering through the trees. The trees in this case, we'll let Chris talk about that in a minute. And we have a little backup turnaround space here for the guests to get on out of Dodge if they don't like the place. And we have the private parking back here in the corner with the 3-car garage. And then you see the ADU at the top of the screen, which is already permitted and under construction. Couple sets of retaining walls here to keep the city design standard vegetation wall height formula going on in a successful way. Going to the next plan is the same. It's got the topo on it and all that kind of thing. There's guest bedrooms here if you want that, and bathroom in between. There's the great room again. Study, sleeping area, and master closet and master bath in this area, again, sharing the eastern view. Going to the site sections or building sections, this is just, basically got the street up here on the left and the North Mountain view to the right going out there. And this is the gallery. It's basically through the gallery, cutting through the primary suite. I can't use the word master anymore. And then we have east and west, the other sections in the other direction. There's the ADU that's just outlined just for reference, but we cut the driveway through and take a little dirt away from there. And this is at the entry itself, showing the campanile, the gallery, the other parts of the roof. This is, no wonder I'm having trouble. That's Mike's drawings, the civil engineer. He doesn't know what he's doing. Anyway, we're tier 3, I think, is what we are, and he's got a whole ton of collection cistern, absorption canisters underneath the ground here, and then these are disbursement riprap down the hill here. And he's worked it up enough to know that it can work. He just has to work out the details. Scrolling down, down, down. There's a section through the ADU from the street to the left, coming through here, just showing where this would be our driveway level for the garages. How the site stair steps
You
down.
have 2 minutes remaining.
What's that?
You have 2 minutes remaining.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, great. You can see, what I'd like to point out here on these sections is just the massing of the house, how the single story goes up and comes back down again. The 14-foot low is basically a really typical single story height, coming back up and back down again. Again, kind of the wedding cake effect. Here's the dynamic iron gate. This is cantilevered. It slides from the right on the screen, and there's no wheels on it. The guy's got some wheels underneath here that a steel beam underneath this thing rides on, and it pushes on out and covers the opening. And it's just heavy sheet metal was what he's done. So he's made a water theme out of it. This is a planter that we have alongside the driveway, which is opposite the front door entry into the house, annotating back and forth that axial entrance and art feature with the owner's favorite peacocks to be put in tile and all that. This basically is a site section. That's really the road dotted in there. That's the, or the driveway beyond. No, that's the road. And this is the street walls itself as they stair step down there, 6 feet high, and it wraps around the corner and goes back in there. That gate's 24 feet off the face of the curb. Going up a couple levels here in elevation, we have a groin vault area here that's outside walkway from the garage and the trash area to the kitchen. And that will be a flat roof, as well as this trellis area out here in front will be a flat roof with solar on it. So we have about 400 square feet of solar going into this place, which is about 10% of the floor area of the building. Again, the elevations, the arches, stonework showing around the trim of everything. Doing
Does the water table trim show there? We have limestone water table going up partially.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it shows on those pictures.
No, well, it shows
Beautiful with
right there, yeah.
fossils in it and that little amber, there. on the
Here's
lower
our,
left.
here's our materials. We're doing steel windows and steel doors. The guy's really an artist in that. 3 types of tiles here, 20, 20, and 60%. This is the wall color. This is the travertine marble we're using as a water table around, as a feature up 36 inches around the base of the thing. And then we're having Arizona flagstone patio covers. And again, some more renditions of the same thing. There's the travertine. You know, it's that pitted marble. And again, the repeat of the elevations, a repeat of sections showing the terracing or mounding of the roof. And we get to the landscape plan.
There's no time, but if you don't mind going quickly through the landscape, that would be helpful.
Yes,
Yes.
actually,
Mhm.
it's a Mediterranean slash subtropical plant palette. 80% of the material will be low water use, so we meet all the willow kelps and whatnot. Basically, what we're doing is we're coming in with some accent palms, as Richard showed in his plans, and then the trees that will line the driveway will be fruitless olives, so they're very low. And then ground covers following that drive will be carex. It's a low carex. I don't know if you know it anyway. It's a grass, a low-growing, drought-tolerant grass. We're using bougainvillea, lantanas, bird of paradise, agaves, just that theme running throughout. And then low-level accent palm trees, lady palms, chamarops, things like that. And then we have privet hedges around the perimeter to help soften those walls, and vines on the key places on the structure for softening from the street and the perimeter and whatnot.
And calla lilies.
Yes, those are kind of agapanthus. So we wanted to feel lush and subtropical, but they all will meet the requirements of low water use plant material.
Perfect, thank you. Appreciate the speediness.
I'm sorry, Chris. She drove all the way from San Ynez to come here to speak 2 minutes.
Okay, we'll move to public comment.
Sure.
Thank you, Chair Lewis. I'll start with in-person public comment. At this time, I do not have any slips for this particular item. However, if anyone wishes to make a comment, they may fill one out and bring it to me. I see no one in the audience moving to do so, so I will move on to virtual comment. And at this time, I do not see any hands raised for virtual comment. And we did receive written correspondence for this particular project from Jesper Swervdrup and Pippa Carson. And at that, I will turn it back over to you, Chair Lewis.
Okay, great. I did have one question for staff. Can you verify the maximum guideline floor to lot area ratio? They do not need then to meet any of the FAR items, correct?
Yes, that's correct. It's guideline because of the
Perfect.
how large the parcel is.
Great.
Thanks.
Okay.
I would like to add that we do have a letter from the HOA, a signed, authorized letter. I guess we didn't get it to you, and I will.
Yeah,
I
that
was
might be
just
coordination
looking
with
for it.
staff for the application afterwards.
It's on the drawings.
I'll do that.
It's on the drawings.
Okay.
Yeah, we
great.
definitely have it. The HOA BAR approved the plans.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay,
Paula.
so we'll start with questions. Does anyone want to begin?
I have like a more of a general architectural style question. Have you, like, maybe we haven't seen it in this set, but starting the project, any compatibility of the architectural style with the neighborhood surrounding, or this is going to be the unique architectural style in the neighborhood for itself?
To answer your question, the neighborhood is one of everything you can imagine
Yeah,
ever
I know. I know the
imagined.
neighborhood really well. That's why I'm asking. I haven't seen the style, and it's pretty unique. And
It's, what we would call Mediterranean. The arches, there's a lot of tile and stucco and wood roofs up there, and a lot of Andalusian, and a ton of contemporaries that are really strong contemporaries.
There are a couple with that sort of Spanish flavor but they're kind of recessed down off the street.
That's true.
On the north side, there's at least two driving.
Right,
in,
there's
But they're not that visible.
Yeah, if you come up Sea Ranch and hit Campanile, turn right there on the downhill side, there's a real nice stone stucco and tile roof house with lots of arches in it.
in another question is like comparing the ADU height with the main residence. How tall is the ADU in comparison with the?
ADU 16.
Okay, so the difference is, and it's in like a lower slope, yeah.
It's actually, its floor is 1.5 feet, 2 foot lower than the main house. So that's why right here on this little drawing, you'll see the roof hit is at our garage height, which is that 14 foot I was mentioning it to you.
The reason I'm asking that is from the north neighborhood, which will be down the hill from where the tennis courts are in the Hope Ranch, like the down the hill in the north side, where you're like further, like 101, you'll see that it's just far away. But like when I looked at the landscape plans, pretty much is screened with landscape.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes, the wall side.
Oh, yeah. And, Hidden Valley
Hidden Valley Park,
is
that's
that
where I'm
part
like
down there.
exactly saying you'll see
That's
it.
like 50 feet down the hill vertically.
Okay. That was my question.
Any
What
questions?
did you do with my
Board Member
pictures,
Heidi?
Chris?
I just got a chance to look at the heights, so that was one of them. And yeah, I might have more questions after you go.
Okay.
I have maybe some, but I'm hoping you'll articulate better.
No, well, one question, looking through the neighborhoods, it looks like one or two have site walls. Do you happen to know how tall they are?
They, again, vary.
Okay.
What we have done is we put our site wall behind the 10-foot line, which is a setback for any height you want. So that's why we just 6 feet. The Dr. Kislak is a single lady, lives by herself, and she only has a chihuahua. So it's not a lot
At
of
this
security.
I wish it would,
So
that would
the
last.
6 foot was a magic number that doesn't require a special permit and does give us some security anyway. That's the concept of it. And then I set it off back and forth as it goes up and down the hill, and Chris took all my good work and covered it with grows. So,
I definitely envision a ton, as much as I'm allowed to have of bougainvillea on all the walls. I'm mad for bougainvillea.
but to answer your question, yeah, a lot of them are 4 or 5 feet high, but they're inside the 10-foot setback line. They're closer to the curb. And I just drove through this afternoon and kind of saw that. And a lot of hedges are like 8 feet high, 2 feet back from the curb in that neighborhood.
I think that's my only question. Do you have another one?
No, I was just trying to, I'm not an architect, so I'm in a full disclosure, so I was just trying to think about just the palette and style and also the roofing. I'm not as familiar with that, so.
You can do a mixed palette. I think it's valid of what's consistent in the neighborhood, but it looks like you've got the 60% of the lighter color and then 40% almost kind of close together. Yeah.
Yeah, the existing house is just all orange red.
Right.
And we didn't want that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think once we go into comments.
Okay.
And
yeah.
just to add to style of the house, the client expressed a firm desire for a Mediterranean type of house with a contemporary twist to it. Clean, not quite so ornate and all that kind of thing, but a contemporary twist to it. Like the columns won't be, Gothic or Doric or composite columns. There'll be some kind of contemporary cap on them.
Okay.
They'll be out of marble or some material like that.
Okay. My questions were more for color palette, but that's helpful too. I actually have one other question that might be related. This is just for my own.
Oh, you saw the colors in here.
Yeah. My own just learning. So when an ADU is under a separate permit, but then was that permitted to match the current home or the new, like how does that work?
Yeah, I can provide some background. So it's interesting because they had the ADU permitted with the old design of the home, and they were proposing it to match, but now they've resubmitted for both projects, so the ADU is asking to match this new design, but we have to approve this new design before the ADU can change. So things are kind of in the midst
okay.
right now.
Got it.
But generally, though, yeah, the ADU has to match the current design of what's there standing there
Okay.
today. Yeah.
That's helpful.
Uh-huh.
I wasn't going to lead anywhere with that. It was just for my own understanding. I think that's it for me.
And the reason that we did it that way is, well, there's a few reasons, but one is at one point I was hoping to live on the property I was hoping to remodel the existing house. I mean, who wouldn't rather do that than demolish and build from the scratch up? But we found so many flaws in the process, in the sewage system, in the foundation is cracked, just beyond
It's highly
cracked.
expensive soil and it's not really properly compacted, so we're doing a structural slab to float on it.
So then it went from being a remodel of the main house to being a complete new house, which of course gave us a new slate to work with. And so we are absolutely matching the house to the ADU, but it's kind of in an odd order because, like I said, I was hoping to live there. I was hoping to have it be, and I could get that done faster than remodeling the house. And then I was hoping, well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's compatible style with marble, couple of marble columns and the same.
And it's going to have a little bit of a Moorish feel, like the groin is going to be
pointed.
both along the gallery in the front and the breezeway in the back. And we'll have, painted mural walls and ceilings, ivy and that sort of thing.
Nice. Okay, we will move, did you have any questions? Okay, we'll move to comments. Board Member Moslehi, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I don't know if this is a question or a comment, but so the neighbor to the east is a pretty modern contemporary house, and to the west is like a older house, pretty like one-story settled. Have you guys like talked, and have they seen the project and support?
I talk to them routinely. In fact, I would say to my west, we've gotten rather friendly, and towards my east, I check in every month and just make sure they don't have any disgruntlements. And so, yes, I feel like I've absolutely made a friend, and also on the other side, certainly they're compatible.
Okay.
Yes. Now, the only one, the house across the street changed ownership 3 times in the period of time since I bought the property. And I did reach out to the first 2 owners, and then the third one I just said, I didn't. But both times that the house was on the market, Richard and I went, and he got a lot of pictures from the house looking over the pre-existing house, and then drew some very extensive sightline drawings. Yeah.
To that point, the HOA letter and the neighbor to the west did encourage Paula to get the house done in a hurry because they're looking for the improvement compared to what's there.
Okay, the question, like the comment was only like to make sure that like in general, the neighbors are in agreement, and they will, I mean, like it's public notices there, so if they have any comment, they can be here. The other,
I want to comment there. I'm the neighbor across the street. I don't know if I had a chance to chime in.
We had public comment earlier.
The comment that was submitted would be presented.
Oh, we read it. It was emailed out to all of us, so we have read it. Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay.
thank you for letting us know. The other thing is like I'm still trying to absorb the architectural style. And I think the renders are more pink than the color palette provided in the set. So, like when I looked at this color here, see, comparing
Yeah,
to
it's
the
more muted.
renders, so it's like more muted. So, I think one of the things that like at the first sight, the renders are more pink, and that is like more settled into the landscape, and. Yeah, but like, I would like to see a picture from like it could be like a photo simulation down from the Hidden Valley Park, because I think like this project with the scale will affect the public view towards that hill. The landscape will talk a lot about how that architecture will pop out, like soften that. Yeah, that was the intent, but maybe just like a simulation of like how that will affect the skyline of the hill from down below, because that's the most important public view that we will have. Because from the street, I'm sure with all the landscape proposed on the south side, even the neighbor 3620, who is here, I think it's this one. And with that, the larger tree that you pointed out, so we're not, with the proposed project, they already the mountain view is covered by that, so we're not proposing anything taller than that. My only concern is like from down below.
Is it the amount of glazing or the height?
The height, the architecture style, the color palette, that would be really,
I actually do have a picture of it, not with me,
okay.
bad. But anyway, I can tell you that I frequently go to my country club, which is commonly known as Mulligan's on the municipal golf course.
Yeah.
And I can sit there and look at this site. And the only thing I can see is the big metal roof reflecting a huge glare right all over the golf course.
From the neighbor you're talking about?
Mhm.
Oh, okay, I see.
Solar panels.
Because, well, it's a metal roof, you know, it has, and it's flat and a standing seam, and it will reflect, but anyway, that's the only mass I can see up there, even when there is no glare coming off the roof.
Any other comments?
The only thing is like the landscape on the, like where here, like how tall, like here when it's going down, the
On the
proposed,
hillside?
on the hillside, like how tall the trees will be, like
Well, we have
here.
those terraced walls that
Yeah.
have a privet hedge. so
Yeah.
The walls can be completely covered.
Oh, I
And
see.
then I have ground covers cascading over.
Okay.
And then we have some little dwarf magnolias to soften. On the sides, we have some jacarandas.
Oh,
and
so
some,
there's-
dwarf strawberry trees on the perimeters. You know, obviously we don't want to block views.
Yes.
But I have some small scale magnolias that will help break that elevation up as well.
Yeah.
The walls you will never see.
So I
But
think
the
with the
privet edge is like-
perspective from down below, what we will see is the proposed trees, mostly.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, that was my comments, I think.
Okay, thanks. Board Member Graffiti?
Yeah, I don't have a ton of comments. I mean, I think generally the size and the scale of the project seems to be fitting with the neighborhood, and I know it's a guideline, FAR. Appreciate that you're gonna have the ADU and the residence match. I know that's a hot topic for us. The only thing is in the rendering, and I don't know, I guess we are a design board, so we do have some say for this, but it comes off very strong, the pink in the color and then the variation in the roof tile. So it's hard for me, I know you have the sample board in here, it's a little bit difficult for me to see, okay, what is perception versus reality gonna be, but it definitely has a lot going on, I think, just from the rendering perspective that I'm trying to take in.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'd like to, there is quite a variety in the neighborhood of architectural styles. They tend to lean a little bit warm tone, and so I wonder if the main wall plaster color could be a little less pink, a little more warm, and or show some kind of coordination. But it might just be the rendering of what we're seeing. I would recommend, though, on the roof to reduce the percentage of that lighter color and have something that creates an effect more similar to the existing roof colors, where you have the materials.
We are looking
We've
at it.
got it on here.
We
Yeah,
have
we're
it.
looking at our sheet.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm looking at the existing drive to the residence and that perspective there, actually on page 6 would be helpful. If you don't want to keep going all the way, if you want to
Well, we
look on
can
page
certainly
6.
bring in actual,
No, I think the goal, actually, if you look at page 6, no, page 6,
What's
you
on
keep
page
going down. I want you to look at your existing house.
page 6.
Yeah, 6, yeah.
You're at 26 right now.
Okay,
Just,
but
you
if
can
I
just
could
type in
just point
6.
out that the stucco will be lighter than that really bold orange.
Of what's being in the rendering, correct?
Yeah, and
You
Right.
can type in 6 too into the box at the top.
Yeah, if you can type like where
There
you
you
see
go.
like
You
the
could do
number.
that too.
Oh, yeah, you're
Yeah.
going up. Great job. Go, go, go.
You're at 6, there we go, you're there.
There you go.
And now
stay.
we'll wait. And I'm looking at, on page, that top, oh,
Right.
no, go back, and zoom in there where you see the garage doors and the roof. Yeah, and zoom in there. And what you see here is more of a medium tone with some variation of darker. And I think that's going to fit your neighborhood context more than the pops of light instead of pops of dark. If you're adamant about the pops of light, I think it'd be, which is what you're showing in your kind of 3 roof tile samples.
Those aren't right.
Right. So I think
So
it,
wrong.
yeah. So I think it'd be good to update the exact roof tile and show the intent of the variation, which I think the board, getting something closer along the variation that you see here in your existing that has a massive, a medium tone with darker shades rather than going lighter, I think is going to help blend in with the surrounding homes a little bit more.
Especially since it's going to be a taller residence and there's going to be taller elements to it than what's existing as
Right.
well.
Yeah.
Just a little
Just a little
taller. A
taller.
little is subjective, I guess, but yeah.
The thing that I will say, I think that the project is cited laid out very, very well. The site plan, the floor plan, the flow is really great. I think the landscaping is beautiful and does a great job of screening. And I believe that the landscaping will end up covering some of the walls. I think if you're open at all to slightly reducing some of them along the street of the site walls, I think that could help, but it's not a requirement. I think it just adds right now to that visible like mass of the residence because it's a hard surface and you're seeing that in some of the other site walls. But in general, I think given the scale of the property, I'm okay with the scale of the house. And I think the Mediterranean style works well. I think the arches are appropriate. And I think even, what you're showing as far as sight lines, I do think Board Member Mosley's question about the rear, I feel like I'm pretty satisfied with the landscape proposed and the screening of that wall. And I think the biggest thing is nailing in the material colors and trying to blend in a little bit more with some of the neighborhood colors that are also in a Mediterranean style, so that it will help blend in a little bit more. And I really like your veneer and paving colors as well. Is there site lighting proposed?
There will be.
Yeah.
But this was conceptual.
Yeah, no, that's fine, just wondering, okay.
Bringing it back to low
Okay.
voltage LEDs and very subtle.
And then were there trees being removed on the property?
There is,
Native California
Okay.
trees at all.
no, there's a tea tree that we're removing.
Okay,
And there's, other than that, it's really devoid of trees.
okay. So board, I'm curious your thoughts on it going to concept for PDA.
I'm open to that.
Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion? Okay. Thanks.
I can move your notes all the time.
There you go. I move to continue this project indefinitely to the consent calendar with the following comments. The board is generally in support of the mass and scale of the proposed project. The board would like to see the roof tile have a reduced percentage of the lighter tile shown on the proposed material board on A4.1. To create a blend similar to the existing roof. The board recommends a warmer plaster color that better corresponds with the neighborhood. The board looks forward to seeing lighting and architectural details And that's it. Let's see. And then the board recommends studying the height of the site walls and appreciates the landscape screening.
Okay. I will second that motion.
Chair Lewis,
Yes.
Board Member Graffitti,
Yes.
Board Member Moslehy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Very
Thank
beautiful.
you.
It'll be a lovely project.
Thank you.
With that, the SFTB, meeting is adjourned for August 26th.